Live in 5, 4, 3.
I'd like to welcome everybody to our reconvening of the NIC Board of Trustees meeting for April 24th, 2013. And I would ask you all to join me in rising and pledging allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We're going to have a verification of the quorum, and all members are present, so we have a quorum. There are no guests. The whole room of you is guests, so I welcome you all, but I'm not going to introduce you individually. How's that? Next, we have the approval of the minutes. We have 3 sets of minutes that need to be approved. So let's go through those. First, with the March 15th minutes, and they're in your packet. If everybody's had an opportunity to review those, I'll entertain a motion with regard to adopting the minutes.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Mr. Chair, I move we adopt the minutes of March 15th, 2013 of a regular board meeting.
Second?
Seconded.
No, I'm sorry, that was a special meeting. I read that wrong. March 15th was a special meeting.
Okay. We still have a second, right?
Still seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The minutes from the March 15th meeting are adopted. Next are the minutes from the March 27th meeting. Do I have a motion on the March 27th meeting?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to put a motion on the floor to adopt the minutes of March 27th meeting.
Second by Meyer.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, 27th minutes are approved. Then we have a minutes from the meeting of April 6th. It's a special meeting.
Is that? Okay.
Yes. That's under tab 2, I think. You'll find it.
Tab
Your
1.
packet.
2, thank you. Yes.
So I need a motion with regard to the approval of those minutes.
Mr. Chair, I would like to propose an amendment to those minutes.
Sure. We need a motion and a second, and then we can amend.
All right, sir.
So I need a motion to approve.
I'll make the motion, sir.
Second? To approve? Just to approve the minutes. Do we have a
You
second?
needed a second?
Yes,
Second, Nielsen.
we have a second. Now we can have a discussion. Yes.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Sir, I make a motion to amend the minutes.
Why don't you state your amendment?
One is that I would like to note for the record the attendees at that meeting. That it were Board members Meyer, Banducci, Nilsson, Legal Counsel Lyons, Vice President of Instruction Burns, and President Dunlap. I would also like, for the record, to note that the vote that was taken was a unanimous 3-0 vote, voted affirmatively by all 3 trustees that were present. And that I would like to note that we did have legal counsel, Mr. Lyons, with us in both executive and open session.
There are 3 different amendments. If you don't mind taking them that way.
Please, sir.
The first one is to amend the minutes to include that Mr. Lyons, Vice President Burns, and President Dunlap were in attendance. Do we have a second to that amendment?
Meyer, second that amendment?
Okay, and we'll have any discussion on the amendment? All right, all in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Abstain.
An abstention, okay. So that, the amendment passes and will become part of the minutes. The second proposed amendment is that the vote on the motion was 3-0. Is there a second to that amendment?
Second.
Seconded, any discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
You abstain? Okay. All opposed? Okay. So it passes on a 3-0 vote. Third requested amendment is that Mr. Lyons was there for both the executive session and the general session. Do I have that right?
Yes, sir.
And is there a second for that?
Meyer, second it.
Okay. Is there any discussion on it? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Abstain.
Abstained? Any opposed? Okay. So, the minutes will be amended to include the provision, the fact that Mark Lyons, Vice President Burns, and President Dunlap were in attendance at the meeting, as well as those members that are indicated in the minutes, that the vote taken was a 3-0 vote, and that Mr. Lyons was present at both the general and the executive session. Now, do I have a,
Mr. Chairman?
yes?
One thing, when I mentioned the, who was in attendance, it may not be a small point, and maybe it's saying this, but I did mention that, want to mention that Trustee Meyer was acting as Madam Chair and chaired that meeting.
Okay, do you think that needs to be an amendment?
It says it.
That's why, is that what we're seeing that called to order? That
Actually, as Vice Chair.
Okay.
And I adjourn the meeting? Yeah.
So now, we need a motion to, on the minutes as amended.
Meyer moves to approve the minutes as amended for the April 6th meeting.
Need a second?
Second. Nielsen.
All in favor?
Aye.
Abstain.
Abstain? All opposed? Carries 3-0. All right, so we have the approval of the minutes from April 6th, 2013.
Two.
We now have a time frame in our agenda that we've set aside for public comment. Public comment is something that's provided and allowed by, at the discretion of the board chair, and it should be restricted to matters that are on the agenda. And the list, or the discussion should be limited in 2 minutes. Now, nobody can say much in 2 minutes, but I'm going to hold you pretty close to 2 minutes because we need to get on with the meeting. The public comment is controlled by who signed up for it. We had 2 individuals that signed up for public comment, and so I'm going to call them in the order that they signed up and allow them to come up to the podium and make their public comment. And Molly Mashad is the first one. Thank you, Molly.
Good evening. My name is Molly Mashad, and I'm English faculty here at NIC. I want to take this opportunity as an instructor, an alumnus, and a Coeur d'Alene native to thank the board, the North Idaho community, my campus community, my students, the Division of English, and my faculty evaluation team for the opportunity to engage in the tenure process. Over the past 4 years, I've embarked upon the beginning of a professional review process that establishes and maintains teaching excellence here at NIC. Coming from the corporate world, my experiences as a marketing executive never entailed such rigorous scrutiny from my colleagues, my managers, and clients, in this case, my students. And this tenure process I cannot fully articulate how meaningful, insightful, and beneficial this process has been and will continue to be. While some presume that tenure marks the time to rest on one's laurels, at NIC, it actually marks the beginning of ongoing quality control, rigorous review, and professional development. While I'm not naive enough to believe that tenure equates to lifelong job security, I do appreciate my college's fact that we honor the culture of excellence that tenure represents. To the larger community, our culture of excellence is just what sets us apart from the Phoenixes, the ITTs, and other post-secondary competition, and how we can differentiate ourselves as few others can. It is why this community college attracts business executives, lawyers with Juris Doctorates, and military officers as dedicated full-time instructors. It is why our students can rely on the most cost-effective education their dollar can buy. It is why our community trusts and depends on our contributions. High-quality faculty serve as one of the cornerstones of this great institution, so I thank you for recognizing and honoring that. And I look forward to serving my students, my college, and my hometown community with your confidence. Thank you.
Molly, thank you very much. The second individual who signed up for public comment is Tony Stewart. Tony? Now, Tony, realizing that you can't do anything in 2 minutes, I'm gonna give you a
Mr. Chairman,
signal.
I speak in 50 minutes and 1 hour and 45, depending on the class.
I'm
Please
gonna
don't
give you a
take that
signal.
against my time.
I'll give you a signal if you get too long, okay?
I have my friends with me, be aware. Mr. Chairman, board members, President Dunlap, and the public. I stand before you tonight to address the historical and long-debated issue of tenure in the academy. As one who spent 9 years at 3 academic institutions or universities seeking knowledge and understanding while pursuing degrees, I was grateful to be in an environment where the faculty and students participated with inquiries both numerous and dealing with great issues of history as well as the present challenges of the day. This freedom was all made possible through the protection of academic freedom, free speech, and free press, protected and embedded in the tenure policy of those great institutions I attended. Academic freedom is historically embedded in the principle that freedom of inquiry by faculty members is essential to the mission of the academy. The academy must guarantee to the faculty and also to the students the freedom to teach, learn, and communicate diverse ideas or facts, including those that are inconvenient, uncomfortable, and controversial to external political groups or the authorities without being targeted for repression, job loss, or imprisonment. The beginnings of democracy can be traced to the early days of the academy with the Greek and Roman philosophers who pioneered the idea that we must all be free to inquire about the unknown and the yet unaccepted theories so cherished in the academy environment. As one who spent 39 years teaching at North Idaho College, I want to assure all of you that the driving force behind tenure is not job security. This is often a national misconception. As I stated above, tenure's mission is first and foremost to extensively evaluate faculty while safeguarding freedom of thought without intimidation. For instance, NIC's tenure policy 3.02.09 and evaluation 3.02.21 has one of the most extensive, thorough, and exhausting evaluations, rarely even seen in the private sector of employment. The tenure candidate has an evaluation team, student evaluations, division chair evaluations, tenure committee review, administration recommendations, and finally, your judgment as a board. NIC tenure is not for life. In fact, every 3 years, the faculty member has a continuation and review. Each year, all full-time faculty, including tenured members, have student evaluations, division chair evaluations, and in the case of an unaccepted performance, the individual loses tenure and they lose their job. When I was here for all those years, I personally witnessed the fact that in several cases, because they didn't meet those performances, they did lose their employment. And finally, may I say that if one loses tenure and it's followed by loss of academic freedom and free speech, one can lose their accreditation. And if you lose your accreditation, the doors must close. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Tony. Okay, our next item on the agenda is celebrating success, and we're going to talk about the alternative spring break and service learning. Jessica?
Brought a few people with me.
Good.
Thank you so much for giving us the chance to come with you tonight and share with you about our spring break experience. This year I had the opportunity to lead 8 of our students to Portland, Oregon. We participated in an immersion program with an organization called Bridgetown. The initial purpose of this trip was for us to learn about homelessness and learn about what Portland is doing to serve their homeless community. But there was no way that I could have predicted the powerful impact that this trip has had on me and the students who attended. Our experiences truly opened our eyes to a life so different from our own. We were able to connect with and serve many individuals, learn about their stories, hear about their struggles and their loneliness. During our trip, we became people of proximity. We learned about the city of Portland and the people who live there. We learned to look at the good and the bad around us. Any stereotype we had going into this trip was shattered when we connected with the people who were living on the streets. We also became people of compassion. We learned to show love and attention to people who are so often ignored. We sat on the ground, in parks, under bridges, and on the floor of shelters, talking with people and hearing their unique stories. We became people of understanding. Our homeless experience opened our eyes to the hardship on the streets. We were able to experience a small bit of the difficulties that these folks suffer every single day. Finding food, getting out of the rain, carrying heavy loads. This was all very eye-opening. This trip was truly amazing. I don't think that any of us will be able to look at people the same way again. Since we've been back, we've begun to look at our own community in a new way. We have started to respond to our own community's needs by learning about the different services that Coeur d'Alene provides and plugging ourselves in. We've been serving food at a local soup kitchen and connecting with the individuals there, and we've been sharing our stories from our experience. I have some of our participants here, and they would like to share some of their stories.
Hi, my name's Duncan Menzies, and I want to say that the experience of the alternative spring break trip, all the experiences are far too vast to condense in the 30 seconds that I have here. However, I can say that the experiences that were created over the spring break trip have changed my view of people and changed how I see listening and the definition of that. I have gained the blessing of understanding people's stories and seeing people for people, in the sense of being intentional about caring for others and understanding that we are all on this thing called life together. I have seen how great it is to unselfishly listen to people and care for others, which I can apply to my life here in Coeur d'Alene. When we understand that each person has experiences, personalities, and stories that are unique and worth paying attention to, only then can we learn, grow, and love more deeply by listening to those people. And that, I believe, is evident with anyone that has gone on this trip. I want to thank the college for coordinating this experience, and I hope that more students in the future can take part in it. Thanks.
Thank you, Doug.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jordan Ware, and I got the greatest opportunity to also join these people on this beautiful trip. I feel as we grow in life, there's a point where we all end up questioning, like, what is life truly about? And I think we search and search sometimes, and unfortunately sometimes we never know, or we just never know when we're going to come across it. Frankly, I have finally scratched an idea of what life really means. And it was because of this trip and because of these people that I got to experience this. One day I was sitting in class, just the other day actually, and I was started to doodle on a piece of paper, and I was just drawing circles after circles after circles, and some were big circles and some were little circles. And after I looked at it, I was like, I just illustrated something that I experienced on this trip 3 weeks ago. And what it illustrated was purpose. And I discovered that I had a ton of circles on this page, and it filled my entire page. And so as I looked at it, I realized that that trip represented that one big circle on my page. And then just today, right before I came, it couldn't have happened at a better time, I ran into someone on the street, and I talked to them, and I invested in that person. And long story short, as I walked away, they looked at me and they were like, you were very inspirational, and you make me want to go out and grab my dream and hold on to it. And as I walked away, I looked back to that dang silly circle drawing, and I thought, wow, that's just one tiny little circle that I had on that huge page. And I was like, that's from my trip. As I come back now, I can look and know that every single day, whether it's go and work in the soup kitchen with Jess or go on another trip like I did for spring break, no matter what I do, it's one little circle that I can add that's going to eventually be this big, huge circle. And if more people get involved with that, then that's even more beautiful. And hopefully I can start stapling papers together every single day. So I guess I could go and stand up here forever and tell you the little things that I experienced and emotions just from talking and investing in people. But that's one value that I can take from that, is that I want to keep doing more of. So I'll just leave you with one last thing. It's a quote, and I don't even know who it's by, but I love it. And it says, "You're never really whole until you become a part of something bigger than yourself." And I truly believe that.
Hi, everyone. Trustees, everyone, good evening. My name's Azra Avdigic, and I'm a freshman here at NIC. Being a student here, I always try to get involved in any way that I can. And this experience, honestly, like, if I were to really tell you about it, it would take days and days. It was like the most unbelievable thing that I've experienced all year. It was crazy. We got to do all of these crazy things, and I honestly will never look at homelessness the same way that I ever looked at it, ever again. I got to work with some amazing, amazing people that I had known, but I didn't really know them, that well before, and now they're like all my great friends, and it was just an amazing experience. One thing that I got to do was, I was at a station, I was painting homeless people's nails, just doing that, and there was one girl who was gonna get married on Sunday, and I got to paint her nails for her wedding, and it was just like, yeah, and it was just, like painting a girl's nails for her wedding. Like, and she was so sweet, and she was an awesome person, and it was just such a crazy experience, and it was just unbelievable, like, honestly. I really hope that there are more NIC students that can come in and get to experience something like this again, because honestly, it was just so unbelievable, and I had a great time and just wanted to celebrate that with you guys and share that. So, thanks.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Diana Smith. This is my second year at North Idaho College. I went into this trip not really expecting a life-altering experience. I have had lots of compassion for individuals in the past, and I was very aware, I felt, of problems that were going on in the world. But after going and being there for the 5 days that we were, which felt like an entire lifetime, I was able to really understand and develop a compassion that I didn't even know that I was capable of, just by talking to the people there and better understanding the way that they live and what they have to deal with. One of the first things that we had to do was 2 hours of just being a tourist. So we ran around and we took pictures, and we had a limited amount of time. And then when we got back, we were sent out into Portland for 2 more hours of just sitting and talking to people and like realizing what it was like there in the environment, as opposed to running through it. We were in it. Because of that, I was sort of in shock afterward, because the first time I had gone to Portland, it was an experience that was super fun, and I was like, oh, I want to go back. It was awesome. But I really developed a closeness to the people there. Within 2 days, I was able to say hello to people on the streets that I would randomly run into, and I felt like I really belonged. And that was something I thought would be amazing to bring back here. After getting back, we've done various things. We went to a soup kitchen, and the way that I can just sit down and talk to people who otherwise I would have been far too afraid to ever confront in the past, and the meaning that they find in that is just incredible to me. I have grown so much as a person. One of the individuals who I met the last day that we were in Portland, we had a love fest, and we got to invite one of the individuals to sit and eat a really nice meal with us. And the guy who sat at our table was very hesitant to stay very long. He wanted to go stake out a spot on the bridge, under the bridge. And I got him talking, and I got to ask him questions about his life. And he ended up staying longer than anyone else. And he told me that he hadn't gotten to talk to anyone in a very long time. And it was very moving for me. because he was one of the first people I was able to really connect with after so many trial and errors of feeling awkward going up to someone. So overall, just very, very good experience, and I think it's something that everyone would have to really do themselves to fully comprehend. But so for that reason, I hope that NIC continues to do things like this. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. Do you have anything further? No.
Well, I was just going to say that in this short time, obviously, there's not enough time for us to tell you all the details of our trip. But I would recommend if you run across any of these students here, or anyone who's been on the trip, sit down with them and ask them about their experience and have them tell you some more details. But this trip was definitely a success, and I look forward to offering more learning opportunities like this in the future.
Hang on just a minute. There may be questions or comments from the board. Ron?
All I can say is congratulations. Most of us don't figure out that word, I think was used a couple times, it's a true blessing to serve other people. I had a chance for the first time in my life to open a business up to 135 days to homeless so they didn't freeze to death, and we had about 55 people every night. And most people consider them that they would be better off to freeze to death in the middle of the night than to be offered food and shelter. But when you get to know the people and you realize that these people we're all one step away from something that could be as tragic as to be homeless, either through financial, mental illness, and a lot of times that the drug and alcohol addiction is from something that happened to them younger in life. And as you find out, these are real people. These are people that need to be loved on and cared for, and what you've done is given them an opportunity to say is we don't prejudge them. These people are real people, and you've learned this at an age now where that there's a lot of us that are probably here today. It'll take a long time to learn what you learn, and it'll change your life forever. So I just say congratulations.
Chrissy?
Mr. Chair, well, first of all, Mr. Nielsen said that very well, and he deserves a lot of accolades for what he's done on his own in this community for the homeless. I in a line of work where we end up dealing with a lot of homeless issues, and it's heartbreaking at times, and it's such joy to hear from all of you and your experience and the difference that you're determined to make. The city does have a 10-year plan to end homelessness, and there's a committee, and I would strongly encourage you to look into that because you're our future leaders. And so I think what you've experienced and the perspective you bring would be very valuable. Thank you.
Any other comments? Judy?
Just a question on the logistics. How do you all fund such an activity?
The students each paid a portion of it, and then the student activities department supported it as well.
Thank you for making that effort.
Any other comments? Yes. Joe?
I'd like to commend Jessica and our students for demonstrating far more maturity and character than I ever thought about on spring break.
Very good.
Any other?
Thank you.
Yeah, and before you go, let me add my thanks to you for not only what you did, but for bringing your story to us. Bringing your story to us has an impact on all of us. Everybody in this room is going to remember what you did and be thankful for it. And I would suggest that you might be able to put a lot of circles on your page today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having us.
Our next agenda item is an update on the community garden. As many of you may know, last year we tried to get a community garden established on the campus. It didn't work out. It was late in the year, but there's been a lot of work being done on it this year, and I hope somebody comes forward. All right, good, yeah. And there's a lot of headway being made this year, and so we're going to get a report on that.
Absolutely. Hi, my name is Brandy.
Brandy?
And I come to you tonight as a very happy member and representative of the Steering Committee for Community Roots. Okay, we're up. Globally, there is a growing understanding of how sustainable food cultivation, especially on a local level, is a foundational piece of environmental conservation, stewardship, and reclamation. Food is our most intimate involvement with the natural world on a daily basis. How that food is cultivated and harvested and distributed has an impact on us as individuals, communities, and as global citizens. and we model all of these concepts at Community Roots. Community Roots is a program of Kootenai Environmental Alliance, and this is Idaho's original and oldest conservation organization serving our region for 42 years. Community Roots is in its 7th year of serving our community. Our program aims to help develop a healthy local food system in our area and reconnect people with the land that feeds them. Community Roots sprouted in 2007 as a result of one person's desire to make healthy, fresh, local food available to members of our community regardless of income. The local food share project began with 2 volunteers meeting at a farmer's market to haul away aftermarket produce by bicycle to a nearby garage where it was then weighed and sorted to have next day delivery to local soup kitchens and homeless shelters. In addition to the farmers market, the local food share project has expanded to collect food from home gardeners and from fruit tree gleaning. And since our humble beginnings, we have now distributed over 37,000 pounds of produce to over 10 different assistance facilities in the Coeur d'Alene area. In 2009, Community Roots partnered with the Downtown Garden District to help initiate the first community garden in Coeur d'Alene, Shared Harvest. A portion of the Shared Harvest garden is designated for food cultivation solely for Community Roots, and the garden location remains a primary hub for our local food share produce donations and for volunteer organization and participation. And after 4 years of fresh produce deliveries, as we began to become more involved in and aware of the local food shed, it became increasingly apparent that there was a lack of significant food production in the Coeur d'Alene area relative to the substantial population base. So to address this need, in 2010, Community Roots started the Roots CSA. CSA is an acronym that stands for Community Supported Agriculture. And it's a type of farming method where food is grown by a farmer and is divided up weekly amongst dedicated group of subscribers. And I like to have puns. So to play on, or not quite a pun, but I like to be creative here. So to play on a commonly known phrase, give a person fresh produce and you will feed them for a day. But teach them how to grow a garden and you will feed them for a life. Through the Roots CSA, we expanded our program to incorporate both healthy food handouts and how-tos. We accomplished this in 2 ways, through our subsidized share plan and through collaborating with Project Safe Place. Half of our shares were discounted through community sponsorship and shareholder volunteer time. This made fresh produce available to a more diverse economic group while engaging them in the growing process. And we began working with Project Safe Place during the 2nd year of the CSA. The teens joined us in the field on a weekly basis to plant, weed, harvest, and prepare vegetables for distribution. In 2012, Roots lost access to our initial CSA plot and simultaneously were offered the NIC plot along the education corridor. This, along with our continued work at Crosswalk North, Idaho, formerly Project Safe Place, has served to fertilize our natural transition from a CSA to a garden education center, the Roots Gathering Garden. Over the recent winter months, our team has been looking at creative ways to allocate more of our resources and energy towards growing awareness and understanding about local food shed and sustainable food cultivation. These goals have been actualized from the initiation of the Gathering Garden. Roots is working with Crosswalk North, Idaho through their Work Ready program to both educate area youth about food cultivation and sales while developing the garden site. Work Ready is a 5-phase employment readiness training program for at-risk youth between the ages of 16 and 19. We decided on the name Gathering Garden to honor the rich history of this space. This area was known as a gathering place for regional Native tribes. More recently, this site was the home of one of the local sawmills that provided community resources, and livelihood to our region. Our intention is to do the same in a model that can be utilized by various groups throughout our community to learn, share, and grow. All of our efforts to date reflect this intention, as they have primarily been through volunteer time, labor, and resources. We have started soil remediation, site planning and preparation, and resource development. One major site project currently underway is a storage shed and information kiosk being designed and built by K-Tech, Kootenai Technical Education Campus. Another way in which we intend to honor this space is by using permaculture design techniques to ensure the liveliness and fertility of this land for years to come. Of course, one of the most fantastic advantages and opportunities of the Gathering Garden is that we are part of the NIC community and lie in such close proximity to the college. This allows for limitless collaboration, in my mind. Aspirations and dreams are the key to this development, and in our scheming thus far, we've come up with a few ideas. We have talked with numerous staff at the children's program, and we're going to be working on a pumpkin patch with the kids. Our committee member, Steve Brooks, is in discussion with Rick Schultz in the culinary school. Rick is very open and willing to adjust his curriculum to work with the garden. And anyone who has gardened knows that it's very hard physical work and also very satisfying. Work in the Gathering Garden may be used for points in staff and student wellness programs, insurance programs. Our steering committee has met with Julie Van Middlesworth. She was very supportive and excited to work with the garden. She said she would conduct soil samples with her students and use the garden site in class discussions about soil structure, sustainable versus industrial agriculture, land fragmentation, biodiversity, and habitat development. Julie is an EPSCoR ambassador, and she has offered to assign one of next year's interns to developing the swale and water filtration site, which we about jumped out of our seats when we heard that. This would allow future classes to conduct water samples and discuss resource and quality issues. And due to the sustainable nature of our development, volunteer time and effort will continually be needed. We have been contacted by Andy Hughes. He's a senator for ASNIC, and he has asked if the garden could be available for NIC work study students. We have, as a committee, have applied for various grants thus far. We have received valuable donations of money, resources, and time from a variety of community members and businesses. We are in the early phases of creating a Kickstarter video with the help of Barb Mueller for greenhouse funding. And we will have a farmer's market booth to have sales throughout the growing season. And we also have a sponsorship packet that we are distributing to local businesses and community members. And this is, and I have some if you would like to look at them, I can leave with you. This is the sample of the sponsorship packet, and it's just a basic presentation of the ways to support the Gathering Garden, and contributions are limited only by imagination. And we would like to thank you. I know, speaking from being in many steering committee meetings, we are so excited about this opportunity, and to be collaborating with the school is pretty much perfect. And so I want to thank you on behalf of the steering committee.
Thank you, Brandy. We may have some questions or comments from the board. Todd?
Mr. Chair. Brandy, have you guys been able to establish yourself as a 501c corporation for nonprofit status?
Not yet. Community Roots functions underneath as a program of Kootenai Environmental Alliance, which does have a 501c3. The KEA is actually been in discussion, the board of KEA, about getting this program on its feet and then eventually kind of leading us into becoming our own 501c3.
Christy, did you have a question?
Just a comment. Brandy, that was a fabulous report. And For the new board members, hope you're as excited as we are about this. Judy, Ken, and I were very excited about the prospect of a community garden. It's been a long time coming now, and all the things that you talked about, all the relationships we've made, meeting with faculty, staff, and all the possibilities, we couldn't exactly articulate those ourselves. We had to rely on the professionals and experts that we have here, but we knew that there were so many positives to having a community garden. And when you describe the mill site, it is a very small area of the mill site. In fact, it's kind of off in a grassy swale. But we think that the possibilities are endless, and so I'm just so excited we finally launched, so thank you.
Thank you. I'm glad we share that.
Any other comments or questions? Brandy, let me say on behalf of, on the board and NIC, thank you very much for the efforts that you put into this. It looks like it's just going to be a great project for all of us, and we look forward to helping you with that and to your success. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right, we're going to move on to the constituent reports. ASNIC. Christopher?
Good evening, Dr. Dunlap, Mr. Chair, board, and guests. ASNIC has been very busy over the last month with projects, events, and elections. Some of the projects that we finished up are the chess tables out in front of the Student Union building right now. And that's thanks to Gustav Lester, one of our senators. Also, another project of Duncan Menzies, another senator, was a new art piece down in the sub depicting the college's mission, vision, and values. Our club system has been growing quickly, with the ASNIC Vice President inducting 5 new clubs in the last meeting, and that brings the total number of clubs up to 24 here at NIC. The ASNIC Appreciation Banquet will be May 1st at 5:30, and ASNIC is in the middle of elections week with a fierce competition for the president and vice president positions. The new ASNIC board will be inducted in May, and then will be trained by the board that we currently have. Right now, we're trying to wrap up and make sure that they have a running start for next year so that they can just jump into it and be ready to go. As many of you know, I was elected as an ASNIC senator to begin with, and a few weeks into the year, I was bumped up to vice president, and then after a semester, president. This has been such a tremendous opportunity and time for growth for me, and I've truly appreciated all the time, energy, and effort that everybody's dedicated to me and just this time of growth. I particularly appreciate the board's understanding and patience with this time, and that concludes my report.
Any questions or comments? Christopher, thank you very much. By the way, I must tell you that as I came in today and I saw all the political advertisements chalked on the concrete, I wish I would have thought about that when I ran.
Mr. Chair, one question for you, Christopher. One of the things that we've mentioned previously, I don't know if I got any traction with it, and I saw you smiling, so I don't know if we've gone anywhere with it or if there's a way to poll the students or figure out if was the issue of the library hours. And I guess I want to touch base with you on that, because I did hear a number of the kids seem to think that it would be nice to have more availability, and yeah, we do have the city library, but that's not necessarily convenient for some of you folks. Is there anything we could do to get a feel for that, if that's an issue of any magnitude that would justify trying to have it open more?
We've discussed it with our board, and also when the review team was here for accreditation, we talked to them about it, and they had a number of concerns that we thought were kind of out of our realm, and we thought that was more to the NIC board more than ASNIC. But that's kind of where it's left with us.
What's your sense of the students, though? Would there be a utilization?
I think there would be a minor amount on Sundays, but other than that, no.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes. Where's that voice coming from?
You know, I kind of like that just have the voice and not have to be accountable for that. I'd like to recognize President Dean and the ASNIC group this year for just doing such an outstanding job. I don't know if we'll have that opportunity again. Many of you recall that President Dean represented us with the legislature down in Boise in January and did an exceptional job in that role. And just recently, he was the guest speaker representing North Idaho College at the Top Scholars Banquet this past Monday. Generally, they'll have the president of the institution or one of the vice presidents of the institution, and they opted for the real star this year and asked for the president of the student body, Christine, and he did an outstanding job with that as well. You've heard about projects over the course of the year, and this has really been an outstanding group, and I want to take just a moment to recognize President Dean and the Vice President and all the members of ASNIC for what an exceptional job they've done serving their constituency of students this year.
Thank you. Our next report is Staff Assembly. Gary Stark. Gary?
Good evening, Ken, Chairman Howard, Trustees, President Dunlap, Mark Lyons, and guests, and I see a lot of faculty people out there tonight. I missed the last meeting. I was on vacation having a hernia surgery, so I heard they were having a lot more fun than I was, but it was fine. My report is going to be, excuse me, my report's going to be short. Right now, we are doing the Staff Appreciation Awards. They are voting for them right now until Monday at 5 p.m. Also, we are nominating officers for next year. Nancy Edward will be the chair next year, so I think this will probably be my last meeting for the thing. But Christopher, I want to also comment, great job. You stepped up from senator to president, no problem. So great job there. It's been fun sitting there. Sean taught, and you've taught me a ton. And Kathy, you know, I'm going to stand up here when my report is done and support you. So that's all I have. So one more thing, Bill Richards on the community garden. I want everyone to know too that he came to me right when he heard that was going to happen, and he was thinking there'd be some way to put, you know, his rocks out there and do the geology type stuff. So hopefully that'll happen too. So that's my report, and if there's any questions.
Any comments or questions of Gary?
I have one, but I hate to do this. I'm going to go back to Mr. Dean, so I'm going to wait till Gary's done.
All right. Well, any other questions of
Mr. Chair,
Stark? Yes.
just to tell Gary it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
All right.
Gary's still waiting in, oh, sorry, Mr. Chair.
That's all right. Did you have a question of somebody else?
For Gary, is there anything we can do for you to get this moving along between the city and the county issue and the jurisdiction and where you're at with the projects and what you're doing?
I was wondering where that was at. I wasn't sure.
Okay, fair question.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
I will be your facility answer guy from now on. So.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Gary.
Give me just one moment. Mr. Dean, question for you, Christopher. You guys have the ASNIC Appreciation Banquet coming up, and I believe an invitation was extended to each of us trustees. Can you briefly tell me about that? What are we celebrating, and kind of what are we up to with that?
The ASNIC banquet is to celebrate all those involved with student development, and I'll be speaking, so you'll know that it's going to be good. Also, Mr. Stanley will be speaking. It's going to be an event for celebrating the year, and it's 80s theme, so bring your blaze orange or green, and we're going to have games and different puzzles and stuff, so it's going to be fun.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Our next report is Faculty Assembly. Kathy O'Brien.
Thank you. Chairman Howard, Board of Trustees, President Dunlap, Mr. Lyons, and guests. Thank you for the opportunity to report as Faculty Assembly Chair tonight. By the next time the board meets, faculty will have given thousands of final exams. You're welcome, students. Graded thousands of papers and exams, assigned grades, and celebrated graduation, which has to be, I think, one of our favorite days of the year. At our next Faculty Assembly meeting, we will elect new Faculty Assembly officers, including a new chair, and elect faculty senators to the college senate. So we've been gathering nominations, and those elections will be held on May 9th. Therefore, this will be my last report as NIC's Faculty Assembly Chair. I want to thank Gary Stark, Christopher Dean, John Totten, Joe Dunlap, the VPs, and the board for my 2 years, making my 2 years as Faculty Assembly Chair pleasant, interesting, and challenging. And I have learned a lot. I also, before I start my report, want to congratulate the members of our faculty who are to receive tenure tonight. It is a long, arduous process, and they deserve our respect and our congratulations, as well as the people who are going to receive sabbaticals. The April Faculty Assembly meeting was held on Thursday, April 11th at noon, and during that meeting, the following resolution was passed by the faculty. And I quote, NIC's policy on policy 2.01.04 states, the North Idaho College Board of Trustees is committed to timely and meaningful participation of the college constituent groups, including faculty, staff, and students in the decision-making process. The board recognizes that such participation enhances the quality of college decision-making and will improve the communication between the Board of Trustees, the administration, the students, staff, and faculty. In light of the college commitment to wide participation in NIC's decision-making process, as described in 2.01.04, the Faculty Assembly calls on the Board of Trustees to act formally, making a motion approving or rejecting the revised reduction in force policy and procedures, number 3.02.26, approved and respectfully submitted to the board by the Senate, unquote. In addition to this resolution, the meeting included a lively discussion regarding the motion mentioned in tonight's agenda under Old Business, Tab 2. Subsequently, a group of interested faculty met and had another wonderful discussion regarding this topic and how the processes that are in place benefit our students and North Idaho College as an organization. And I would like to synopsize that information for you, and so that it does become a matter of public information. We, as North Idaho College educators, it is incumbent upon us to educate. And this is a time when we can educate not only the board and the people in this room, but the listening public about the processes that are here at NIC and how they do benefit not only faculty, but the organization as a whole. The process of tenure helps assure that students, who you might call our customers, we call our students because we love them, at North Idaho College, receive the quality education they deserve and pay for. This includes the accountability, employee readiness, continuity, commitment, market competitiveness. It helps instructors remain competent in order to prepare a proficient workforce. And I just want to interject a personal statement here, because both of my children attended North Idaho College as dual enrolled students and went on to institutions of higher education. And because of the policies we currently have in place regarding tenure and the quality of education both of them received at this college, they were able to transfer every single credit to those private universities, as well as get scholarships, thank you, because of the education they received at North Idaho College. So I do have a personal stake in this, including my job. I want to talk about the fact that the policies and procedures that we currently have in place provide for due process. And that is important to understand, because if others have mentioned, this is not a guarantee of a job. However, it is a reasonable assurance to continued employment if the faculty member remains fulfills the contractual obligations as listed in the policies and procedures. Those are in place. There's no doubt about that. This process, the process in place also recognizes and provides a continuous, rigorous evaluation process. And as been mentioned, I don't know very many employees that go through the kind of evaluation process we go through, and that is a good thing. We want that. It is a vigorous process. We are evaluated not only for those first 4 years by our peers, by our students, by our supervisors, and by ourselves, but we are continued. It is a continuous evaluation throughout our time of employment, and that evaluation is based on really very important criteria that is outlined in board policy. Our academic or technical preparation, it's very important to be prepared to do this job. Our teaching effectiveness, and for those people who are not in the classroom, it's a performance effectiveness, for example, a librarian or a counselor. The dependability that we show in meeting our contractual responsibilities, the professional growth that we are required to attain, and professional ethics, yes, we are evaluated on those. We are evaluated through student surveys, through administrative evaluation, through self-evaluation, and through peer review. This makes North Idaho College competitive in the job market. It provides an environment that promotes innovation. It contributes to our accreditation. It gives us credibility, not only in the community, but as students go on to other institutions. And it also enables us to get our students ready to go out, either to transfer or get a job, and also allows us as an institution to address emerging markets. It's a win-win-win. It's a win for the students, it's a win for North Idaho College, it's a win for the faculty, and it's a win for our community. And I want to thank you, and I want to thank first of all, the support of my faculty. Thanks, guys. And also thank the board for allowing me to give this report, and I am more than happy to stand for any questions at this time.
Are there any questions or comments from the board?
Mr. Chair, this will be your last meeting?
Well, you don't see me doing the happy dance down here. A little bit.
Well, it has been a real pleasure, and you have stepped up for 2 years in a row now.
Thank
and
you.
Filled a big shoes, and it's a needed position that you have. And so thank you. I wish you well, and I don't know who's going to fill your spot. Did you mention that?
We will have an election on May 9th, and at that time, the new chair will be elected. And I hope to be here on May 22nd. I think that's the next board meeting. I hope to be here to introduce that person. I do have some personal issues that I have to deal with, so I may or may not be here, but I'm hoping that I can be here.
Thank you for everything.
Todd?
Not sure exactly who I'm addressing this question to, because maybe I'm a little out of the loop or confused, but I thought that we as a board had submitted a draft proposal to you guys for a new RIF policy and that we were awaiting a response. Did I?
Hasn't got to them yet.
Hasn't got to them yet.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, then.
Yeah. Any other comments or questions? I have a comment and a question. I guess I have two comments, actually. My first comment is, you've said goodbye to us once before as representative. Your credibility is not real
I
good.
know. Just say no. That's
My second comment is that I, on behalf of the board, had indicated some months ago that we would take your RIF policy that had been presented to us, and we had tabled it, so that the board could go back through, and I think the original concept was that we would come back with some bullet points to be included in it that we thought were necessary. As we got involved in that process, it became apparent that it would be better, quite frankly, for us to come back with a completed policy that then the faculty and staff and Senate could take a look at in its entirety, rather than some bits and pieces that may not have completely filled out the perception of the board. That process has taken longer than we anticipated and desired, quite frankly. And you are right to remind us of our obligation to move forward in a a rapid fashion in order to move these policies along, and I appreciate your reminder. I will tell you that we have moved a long way, as has just been indicated. We have the fundamental policy, I think, put together. We're asking for a last review of it, and we will have it available to you for your review and consideration shortly. But I do appreciate your reminding us of our obligations, and please feel free to do that in the future. We all have those needs from time to time, but we did not let this drop into a dark black hole someplace. We have moved along on it, albeit slowly, more slowly than we wished. And thank you very much. Okay. Any other comments or questions? Kathy, and your support staff, thank you very much. Next is Senate, John Totten. No, how come everybody's sitting down, John? Nobody's.
What happened?
We got Shannon. Sticking with me. Good evening, Board, President Dunlap, and all of you lovely people here. In regards to Senate, we're reviewing the President's Cabinet's recommendations for the committee restructuring at North Idaho College. They are extensive, and it's going to take us a while, but the process is underway. I want to thank the President's Cabinet for their input and their hard work in that process. And we are patiently awaiting the return of the reduction in force policy, and looking forward to working with you all on that and into next year. And with that, this is my final report as well. And I'd like to say that serving as the NIC Senate Chair has been a really valuable experience. I've learned a lot about NIC and about myself and many other things. And for that, I'd like to thank you, the board, President Dunlap, and the President's Cabinet for your guidance and your open doors. Mostly, I ask a lot of questions, and you've always been there to answer them, and I appreciate that. And most of all, I'd like to thank my fellow senators. Many of you are here tonight. It's your dedication and service to NIC has inspired me to get here every month and do this and be at those meetings and do the work. And I really appreciate your help and support, faculty, staff, and students, and everybody there. It's been great. And lastly, I would like to introduce our Senate Chair for next year. It's Audrey Bourne, is faculty member in our Communications Department. She looks forward to being here. Thank you, Audrey, and we look forward to your leadership next year.
Any comments or questions of John? Well, you got off late tonight. Thank you very much. But John, let me express on our behalf, the board, thank you for your representation of the Senate and your attendance at these meetings over the last year and bringing the business of the Senate to us. Thank you very much. So everybody's leaving, but you're not, Joe. You're next.
I thought maybe you had some bad news for me.
No.
Mr. Chair and board members, faculty and staff and guests, welcome. I wasn't planning on making a report tonight because we do have a long agenda, but in keeping with the theme of the reading of the first budget, I realized that most of my bullet points relate to money, and so I thought I better make some comments here. But first of all, I would like to extend a very large thank you to our admin professionals. Today is National Admin Professional Day, and I want to thank all of you for all you do. You're the folks who keep the wheels churning here and keep us moving forward, so thank you very much. Second of all, I'd like to personally thank our constituent groups, Kathy, Gary, Christopher, and John. You've done an absolutely superb job this year. It's been a pleasure working with you, and you have made my first year here very enjoyable and easy to work with all of you. So thank you very much for what you've done. I'd like to mention some things that relate to funding, fundraising, and grants that we have been pursuing. First of all, I noticed Dave, our carpentry instructor, is here. Where's Dave? Yeah, there he is. We're closing in on the big raffle house for the 20th annual raffle, and so far I guess there are 1,300 tickets of the 5,000 sold, so they're going fast, and so you need to get those tickets bought. And Dave, thank you for working with our students and building those houses. It's really great to do that as a fundraiser and as a teaching lab, so thank you, Dave. The open house at the open house at the Big Raffle House, in case you'd like to preview it before you purchase your tickets, is on May 19th from noon until 4 o'clock, and we'll get directions out to you. One of the things that I committed to was, when I came here, was to looking at alternative sources of revenue, and one of those sources relates to grants. And I want to cover some of the grants that the college is applying for, and some that we have a very high likelihood of receiving. In April, we partnered with the Forest Bird Charter Academy in Sandpoint to submit an application to the Albertsons Foundation. We also had partnered with K-Tech for an application there as well. The Albertsons Foundation has reviewed those applications, and we are one of 4 finalists in the state for that grant proposal. And it's a $5 million grant. We would receive $1.3 million of that, and the announcement will be made on Monday. And it's to work with the the Forest Bird Charter Academy and establish a professional, technical, early collegiate access high school program that relates to aerospace and is complementary to the Department of Labor aerospace grant we have already received. Other grants that we have applied for, as you know, the Child Care Center is a very expensive operation, and we have applied to the Department of Education Child Care Means and Access in Schools, and that's aimed to increase retention and completion rates by increasing affordable child care access at the NIC Children's Center for Pell-eligible student parents. And that grant was submitted for $552,000. We also submitted a U.S. Department of Education Title III grant, or are in the process of getting ready to do that, in support of e-learning and outreach initiatives, and that's a $2 million grant. And then today, the RFP was just released for the 3rd round of the Department of Labor Trade Adjustment Act grants, which is the same type as our aerospace grant. We intend on working with a consortium of schools and submitting a grant for the healthcare professions. And then lastly, as many of you know, we embarked on a fundraising effort for our Sandpoint Outreach Center to put in place a biology lab so that students could complete an AA degree without ever having to depart Sandpoint. And that fundraising was done in Sandpoint. Our goal was $100,000, and we raised $135,000. And because of that, our divisional chair, Dr. Zao, has said, well, you know, now maybe we could put a chemistry lab up there. And so we're working hard to make sure we can offer some chemistry courses up there as well, which are the prerequisites for our LPN program. I think, is that correct, Peter? Yeah. And so that will be wonderful to be able to put that in place as well. And then my last announcement is that Michelle Bristow, our Coca-Cola scholarship winner, on Tuesday down in San Francisco was awarded the $2,000 scholarship as being one of 50 Coca-Cola scholars in the nation. And Graydon Stanley and Dr. Burns were there with her to cheer her on as she received that award. And that concludes my report tonight.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Thank you very much. We now move on to old business, and our first item under old business is the second reading of the college calendars. Graydon?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, President Dunlap, and other guests. You might recall from the previous board trustees meeting, this was probably one of the most applauded topics of the evening, was to talk about the college calendar. And in fact, this is the second reading of that tonight, and I just might remind you a bit of that process. There's a calendar committee that exists here on campus that consists of faculty and staff that takes a look at the weeks of instruction, that compares our calendar to those of the local school districts and makes recommendations. We do that quite a distance in advance, so what was recommended to you was the adoption of the calendars for 2019-20 and 2020 and 21. There was also a recommendation that the calendar for 2018 and 19 that you had previously approved be changed and moved back 1 week for spring semester so it stays in line with the tradition. We also took out some of the detail that was included previously in past calendars. Often we'd have dates about last day for payment, date for withdrawal, and we excluded some of that information as those are operational dates that are subject to change, but the start and stop and critical information is included in those calendars. So bringing that to your attention again and asking for your support on behalf of the college and the calendar committee.
So, any questions or comments of Graydon? And if not, then I will entertain a motion. Judy, did you have a question or comment?
Well, I want to be sure of the sequence here. I'm reading here saying this is the first reading.
No, in fact, it's a second reading. On the agenda, it's noted as second. This is an error on the sheet here. It's just included from the last meeting. This is, in fact, second reading.
Therefore, I can make a motion.
Yes.
Okey-doke. Then I would like to move that we approve the college academic calendar for the year 2019 to 20 and 2020 to 21. And are you thinking we need to comment on the earlier years?
Please, and the change on that as well.
And the modification of calendar years 2018 and 2019.
All right, so do you have a second to the motion?
Second.
Ron Nielsen. So we have a motion on the floor to approve the academic calendars for 2019 and 20, 2020 and 21, and a modification of the 18 and 19 calendars. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Just give them a hand.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, the next item on our old business is a reconsideration of a motion for a public forum to discuss policies and procedures regarding tenure and sabbatical that was passed April 6th, 2013. I'm going to insert in this agenda just a little bit. Mark Lyons had asked to make a comment, and I'm going to ask him to do that before we go ahead and discuss the reconsideration motion.
Thank you, Chairman Howard. As many people know, Saturday, April 6th, and the Board of Trustees had a scheduled executive session meeting to discuss personnel matters, I'm sorry, not personal issues. There's a big difference. For me, maybe it's a personal issue. But it's personnel matters specifically related to candidates for tenure and sabbatical. I was present at the meeting, and I think it's incumbent on me to address this matter before the board considers it. Now, after the executive session, it is this board's custom, and has been for a long time, that the meeting return to an open session where typically the meeting is gavelled to a closure. This time, however, before closing the meeting, a motion was made to have a discussion at some point in the future. The motion was not on the agenda. I did allow that to happen, believing that it was not substantive and that it related to scheduling an open meeting discussion at some point in the future. Now, I've been doing this a long time, too long, 30 years sometimes, but I'm not too proud to admit that lawyers make mistakes. I make mistakes. Some lawyers probably make more mistakes than we'd like to admit. But after reviewing this matter, it is my opinion that because this motion was not on the agenda as an open meeting item, and the remainder of the board did not have a chance to have input on it, this was a technical violation of the open meeting law. I take responsibility for this violation. The board members rely on me to give them direction. But really, here's where we are. And I'm advising the board that pursuant to 67-2347-7, I believe the board needs to recognize that the April 6 motion and the decision that was made in open, but not agenda, to schedule this public forum at some point in the future is void. The board may consider the motion made and passed at the April 6 meeting for reconsideration, but at a minimum, the board needs to declare that that action on April 6 was void. So that's a comment I wanted to make, and so it's easy for me. Let's go forward.
So, yeah, hang on just a minute. Did you have a comment did you want to make?
I wanted to ask him if he would read what the motion was. I think that's germane.
I tell you what, we can do that, I think, when we get to the motion. Let's do that, yeah. So the next action that we need to take here is then to move to ask for the reconsideration motion. Before we do that, everybody, I think, that went through this looked at the statutes. There is a penalty indeed for having an illegal session, and it costs $50, and I don't want Mark to have to pay the $50. And so the way we can cure that is by doing what we're doing, which is to acknowledge the error and to make a motion then to bring the motion out in public and to deal with it as a regular motion. So we're going to do that, and you can thank me for saving you the $50.
Well, I appreciate that.
Mr. Chair. Thank you. I think it's fairly well known that I asked this to be put on the agenda, so I'd like to make a few statements about it before we move into a motion. In reviewing what had occurred on April 6th, I felt there was a procedural error. And all I wanted to do was rectify that error. And I want to tell you that I do not believe there was any intent from the 3 board members that were there to violate the open meeting law. I don't wish to vilify my fellow board members in any way, but I do wish for us to recognize the error and do the right thing. Mr. Lyons and I have disagreed on this on a few points. I felt there was more violations than just one, but I respect Mr. Lyons for coming here tonight and stepping up and saying what he said. Our fellow board members have to rely on his advice. I think that they did that in the meeting. They trust him, I trust him, and I appreciate that we have found a way to rectify this error and move forward. So with that, I'd like to make a motion to declare the April 6th motion null and void.
Okay, we need a second. Actually, the thing that was on the agenda was a reconsideration of the motion for public forum. You can put that, I think, appropriately in the form of a nullification because it needs to be nullified in order to satisfy the statute. But if that's the case, then I think we'll move forward with the opportunity to make a motion, remake the motion.
Sure.
Okay. So there's a motion to nullify the vote of April 6th. Do I have a second?
Meyer seconds it.
Do we have any discussion? All right, let's move to the vote.
Just point of discussion was to thank Mark for his observations, and it reminds me again, we are an educational institution. We can be educated.
At any age.
At any age, that's right,
any
and
point.
at any time. And I'm proud of the fact that as a board, we can work on that, and I look forward to doing so.
Ron?
I made the motion, and I stand by the motion that was made, and as Christie's pointed out, there was no intent to do anything that's illegal, and if we're in violation, then we need to rectify that. That there was never a decision that was in the process, it was just open discussion. As you come on as a new board member, the first thing you want to do is understand why we've done what we've done, understand the procedures, understand policy, and have some open discussions. I agree with some of the efforts that are being put on by this college to have open discussions regarding things like this sports complex, bring it to the public. This discussions that we're having about locations of professional technical education, where does that go? The public has some input. I believe there's a lot of things that the public feels like they would like to be a part or understand why there is, and there's a lot of current controversy. As my friend Tony Stewart eloquently pointed out, this is kind of a unknown and a lot of controversy around this. There's no problem with if it's the right thing to do for this institution, discussions will take place. No decision was intended with this, it was just open for discussion for the public. So I still stand by that there should be nothing that happens at this board or nothing that happens in this institution that we should be willing to share with the public.
Now, yeah, we still need to get a motion on the table, but
Sorry, go ahead. I was just gonna make a comment, but
Yeah, will it fall within the motion if we get the motion on the table? Because first we got a motion to nullify, we need.
I can wait.
Okay. We got the motion to nullify, it's been seconded. Let's vote on it. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Now, it's nullified, and now the opportunity to make the motion again so that we can discuss it, and if it receives a second, we can discuss it and put it on the table.
I would ask Mr. Lyons to, if he would be so kind as to read the motion and then see if we will ask that motion to go forward.
The motion that was made is that the board and administration have a public forum within the near future, subject to scheduling, to review and discuss the policies and procedures regarding tenure and sabbatical.
Do you want to renew that motion then?
I would, Mr. Chairman, I would like to resubmit that motion for consideration.
Do we have a second?
I will second.
All right. Now we have it open for discussion. The motion is to have a public forum to discuss tenure. I'm abbreviating the motion a little bit. So, do we have any discussion on that?
Mr. Chair. Thank you. I think that maybe down the road there could be an opportunity for that, but I would like to certainly slow down the process. The board is responsible for policy review. The board hasn't had a chance to even to talk amongst themselves and discuss tenure or any kind of input that they've received. So I would propose a modification to his motion that there be a board workshop, which will obviously be done in public, and the board could discuss tenure policy.
No. Is that a motion for an amendment?
Correct.
Do we have a second to, and would you restate your amendment, please?
That there would be a board workshop, the board would discuss the tenure policy, there would not be a public forum.
Okay, so you want to replace public forum with board workshop,
Correct.
right? Is there a second to that?
Meyer, second it.
All right, so there's a second. There's a discussion on the amendment. Anybody want to discuss?
Well, we're in uncharted ground for me. I'm all for having this board workshop, as Christie's pointed out, because I think it's important that we do this as a committee. But once that we get to a point where that we have an understanding, I think that it would be in our best interest to, again, take this to the community and be able to share that with them in a later date. So I would like to amend hers to represent something that in the future that we would have some community input to our findings and discussions.
All right, let me see if I can't make this too uncomplicated. To amend the amendment, it would just be to put it back in the stage, I think, of the initial motion. So let's do it this way. If her amendment is to just make it a board workshop as opposed to a public workshop. We can vote on the amendment. If the amendment makes it, then we vote on the amended motion, okay? If the board workshop amendment does not pass, then we're back to the main motion. Everybody understand what we're doing? Go ahead.
Okay, Mr. Chair, maybe I'm confused on how we do the motions and what we can do, but I think I had motion 1A and 1B. And I don't know how Ron feels about this, but could the motion be constructed such that we say that we'd like to have this workshop and then subsequent to that, then have a public forum after we've had the chance to have the workshop and talk amongst ourselves, gather the information, and then we could take it out for other input. So it's kind of a part A and a part B. And maybe that would slow it down as Christie desires, but yet we'd still have the ability to take it to a public forum as Ron desires.
Mr. Chair, that
go ahead.
sounds like a fourth motion, I
Well,
think.
Sorry.
No, I think what we can do is we can, the motion is on the table to, for an amendment to replace the concept of public workshop with board workshop. If we pass that amendment, then the board workshop is the only thing contained in the motion. But you can then amend that one, all right, to include a subsequent public hearing. Would that satisfy your?
I would start up by saying so moved.
All right. I guess I want to try and find that we get to where everybody wants to be. And so let's do it that we first vote on the amendment that's been made and seconded, that we replace that we include, well, no, you were going to replace.
No, replace.
Replace public hearing, public forum with board workshop. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Now, I will entertain,
So, Mr. Chair, so far we have now we've passed a motion that says we're going to have a board workshop.
no, yeah, that's correct. Now we can entertain a motion to include that subsequent to that, we would have a public hearing.
So moved.
I'll second that, sir.
Okay. Now we have discussion on an amendment to include after board workshop, that we would thereafter have a public workshop. All right, any discussion on that? I see some puzzled looks on Judy's face anyway.
I'm just thinking out loud that first we have a board workshop, so we become more knowledgeable about tenure. And so I think out loud with you, that would also include how other schools recognize, sometimes there's different wording for tenure, but some effort at recognizing good teaching and honoring it. Then what we're looking at now is, do we have another event, which is, in addition to our board workshop, another workshop, which is for the public to visit with us about it? Is that how you would describe what you're headed for? Mhm. Thank you.
All right.
And the reason I have the furrowed brow is, we as a board have been elected to do that kind of thinking, and that's what I'm just trying to think through. Because public can come to us as board members and say, would you be sure and think about this and this? So I don't have any answers, I'm just thinking out loud.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, if I may comment. I understand the motion and the inclusiveness of the public. I certainly do, Mr. Nielsen. I guess when I said I'd like to slow this down, maybe we could look at, let's get through our workshop, let's talk amongst ourselves, and then determine from there if we think we need to move forward with a public hearing or forum.
Now, we have an amendment, a motion for an amendment on the floor that's going to insert, after the public workshop, that we're going to do after the board workshop, we're going to do a public workshop. That's been seconded, we need to vote on it. Okay? So all in favor of including that subsequent to the board workshop, that we will have a public, what was the word, hearing? Forum, public forum. All in favor of that amendment?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Opposed.
Nay.
It passes 3-2, right? Any other amendments? Because we got an amended motion now that we have to vote on. Anybody else? I'm going to suggest an amendment, quite frankly. I think it is healthy to talk about these procedures. I think it's healthy to give everybody an opportunity to weigh in on what they think they are. Unfortunately, I think the word tenure has gotten all kinds of different understandings from different people, from different walks of life. And it'd be important for us to discuss that and try and understand what the word tenure means here at NIC, because we have a specific meaning of it here. But I think that if we're going to have a public forum on it, it would also be of value to make sure that we include a discussion of, if it wasn't the tenure that we have, what would it be? Because to to just sit down and discuss tenure in a positive or negative way doesn't really help us understand that there may not be a better solution to it. So I would like to include in this public hearing and the board workshop that we explore not just tenure, NIC's tenure, but other types of, and I'll call it employment security agreements, because it really is a much broader thing than just tenure. We're really talking about employment security. Todd.
Mr. Chair, while you're considering the expansion of that discussion, maybe it would be appropriate, as we work through the process anyway, to see how that dovetails with the RIF policy, because what you do with tenure has to go hand in glove with the RIF policy to make sure that they're complementary and not contradictory of one another. So it's maybe a little larger discussion as we look at it in that context, because how we define tenure, I think inherently is subject to what we do with the RIF policy that's currently under review and that we're drafting.
Yeah, and they're already connected in our policies.
Yes, sir.
So I make that suggestion. Usually a chair does not make a motion. And so if there's nobody willing to make the motion to include that and a second, then we can.
I'll second that.
Who's going to make the
I'll
motion?
second your motion.
I will make the motion, Mr. Chair. And Christie, seconding?
No. Oh, yeah, sure.
Sorry. I was asking if you would make the motion, not second. He said he couldn't make the motion, so I'll make it.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
fine.
okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So,
Mr. Chair, could the motion be repeated,
I did.
please?
I think he was looking for you to second.
Yeah.
oh, okay, I second. I am lost.
All right. That's all right. I hope I help find us all of us a way out of this. The motion, the amendment, motion for amendment to the main motion is that we include in the discussion alternative employment security systems.
Yes. That's my second to the motion.
Good.
That I made the motion.
All right, excellent. Any discussion? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, now, the main motion, as amended, is that we, can you read? You have it down there, can you read it?
Well, I've been trying to follow the changes. Motion is that the board and administration have a board workshop within the near future, subject to scheduling, to review and discuss policies and procedures regarding tenure and sabbatical, and that following that workshop, there be a public forum to discuss those policies and procedures, and that those discussions include employment security considerations.
Alternate employment.
Alternate employment security considerations.
Does everybody understand the motion? All right, let's vote on it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes. Thank you. Well, we saved you $50.
Not sure it was worth it.
Wow.
I'm just kidding.
I was going to ask you, Mark, if that was legal, but that got us in trouble last time, so.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I do have a comment. Maybe now might be the appropriate time. Speaking for myself, but I'm going to guess that most of the board members would concur with this. I would personally like to encourage those in the public to restrain themselves from going, no, let me rephrase that, to limit their public discourse when they don't have all the facts and information, and to try not to assume the worst of the Board of Trustees in our intent. When we're in executive session, it is not appropriate for us to comment on the executive sessions. So, for example, if I say no comment to the press about an executive session, I'm not trying to evade, I'm just following protocol. It's not appropriate to discuss those topics. And the rest of the board is respectful of that also. So people have to understand that it will all come out, that we're trying to increase transparency, and that there is no ill intent by this board. So again, I would just encourage the public, when they get partial or mis or disinformation, that they restrain themselves from running wild with it and try to secure the facts, or at least as many of the facts as they can, before they rush to judgment and make assumptions that may or may not be accurate. There was a lot of things said and done in the last week, and a lot of accusations that were levied at this board that I don't think were called for. And I think we're up here doing our best as volunteers to this community and giving a lot of time to this effort.
Okay, if we have no further comments, then we're going to move on to the next tab, which is the first reading of the Student Rec Center. Christopher, you're up again.
Good evening again, thank you. Tab number 3 is the first reading of the proposal made on March 27th by the ASNIC Board. Background on this. For over the last 10 years, the students of North Idaho College have consistently communicated the desire for a student recreation center on the NIC campus. As the elected representatives of the students, ASNIC has expressed those desires to the ASNIC and to the NIC administration and to the Board of Trustees. Last month, March 27th, the ASNIC Board presented our vision of a comprehensive recreation center. Substantial research has been done over the last decade to show the fee of approximately $100 would sustain the construction and the MO budget for this building. The need remains on campus for such a facility, and we, the students, are willing to pay for it ourselves with an implemented fee. The student body feels strongly that a recreation center would help to complete the campus and build into the college's mission, vision, and values. This center would be a comprehensive on-campus facility in which a broad range of fitness, educational, and recreational opportunities are available to the average everyday NIC student. The components necessary for such a facility include a full-size gymnasium, multi-activity court, locker rooms, weight training facilities, cardio and circuit training equipment, fitness activity studio, fitness and wellness classrooms. Before you tonight is the information gathered by the student body on the recreation center. If it is the will of the board, we ask you to consider the motion to institute a $100 fee and begin plans for construction through the ASNIC administration. I, along with Graydon Stanley and Heather Erickson, will be here for any questions you might have on that. Thank you.
Are there any questions or comments of Christopher?
Judy, or
That's it. Thank you. Thanks, Christopher and Heather, for thinking with us. One of the things I wanted to think through with you in what you're looking for today is for us as a board to say, we'll continue to look, but also begin to charge a fee.
Begin to look and start a committee to look. Honestly, I'm kind of scrambled from the last discussion, but I believe the...
That's fair enough.
You can get away with saying that.
Rightly so.
The motion is to begin to the discussion of it as a board on how best to implement that fee.
How best to implement. Because board members, what I'm thinking about is, it's easy to say, sure, we'll charge a fee, but we need some parameters on either a timeline for if we're going to begin to charge it and some focus to make something happen, or if we don't do something, then we need to return the money, which would be scary. I would expect to do something, but I think we need parameters on what we're launching here, and I don't know that you're supposed to have those parameters either. I think that's part of what we as a board do, because it seems to me not only the rec program that you're talking about here, we're also talking about the event center, and I know there was some integration of, if the event center happens, that opens up some facilities on campus for backfill, and there's just so many layers to this.
There are.
I want to think through what the motion should be today to keep the momentum going, but with some direction.
Todd?
Oh, sorry, Todd.
Actually, Judy, that dovetails nicely. Thank you for the segue. President Dunlap and Chairman Howard and myself are on the Event Center Committee, and in fact, we met this morning at 7 a.m. Some of us have been on this campus a lot today. Trustee Meyer's point is well taken. I guess, Judy, I'm not trying to answer your question, but I'm of a thought, and I throw this out at you kind of because of some of the discussions. Should we be able to go forward with an event/athletic center in some venue? One of the discussions is, what do we do with Christensen Gym? And so that's may become a viable option depending on how things proceed. So I think we'd be premature to designate a facility or a location or specific target for this. However, I could see it being beneficial to start charging the fee and banking it so that you have some funds to work with for some modifications, improvements, upgrades, Christensen Gym could use a few little coats of paint, if you will, maybe a little more. We've just redid the floor, though, and some of the bleachers, so that enhances the facility. Would you be open, and Trustee Meyer, does this make sense to you, that we at least allow them to start putting money in the piggy bank with a promise that as soon as we resolve this facility issue that we're looking at, that we could try to move forward depending on the direction. And to be truthful, we've got about a 4-month window on the facility, because we have an option on some property that's been given to the foundation that expires in early September. So we're having to explore things, and we've actually are hoping to come back to this body and at the August meeting and know where we're going. That's a timeline that we've established.
Let me add some information, hopefully, that will help us in our deliberation here. This board does not have authority to approve the recreational facility and cause it to be funded. What we do have the responsibility and the authority to do is determine the need for it and make a recommendation to the Student Housing Authority. They then will go out and determine the scope of the project and the cost of the project. And so what we can do is we can, either by resolution or by motion, I'm not sure which, is to accept your request that there be a facility developed for the students for recreational purposes, and that the students are willing to pay up to $100 per semester. I understand from my earlier discussions with you, Christopher, that in your outline to us, you gave us in the order that you wanted them, the facilities that you wanted included, because you may not be able to get all of them for $100 per student per semester.
Correct.
It depends on what the entire bill shakes out to be and what facilities can be included in that. That will all be done, I think, by the Student Housing Authority. What's before us is, do we see and accept the need for it? And do we want to recommend on to the Student Housing Authority that they proceed with evaluating this project with the parameters that the students have suggested? So, Christie?
Mr. Chair, is this just first reading, or can we make a motion tonight? I thought it was first reading.
Yes, it is first reading, but we can always make a motion to forego the reading.
Yeah.
But this is the first reading.
Okay, because I think that we have plenty of evidence brought before us over the years to determine that there is a need. So if that's the question before us, is there a need, then if I make a motion that we do not do a second reading and we move forward tonight, that's my first motion. Do I have a second?
Yeah, do you have a second on that?
I'd be okay with that, because, I mean, he did make a presentation. I know it wasn't a formal reading last month, but this is a topic we've addressed.
Discussion on the motion has got a first and a second. Judy?
I'm thinking here, because I don't think there's any disagreement amongst any of us that there's a need. I need to think through then, what are we signing ourselves up for when we say there's a need, in terms of what is our responsibility as a campus then to provide a location and other things that go with it. And so I know we're working on master planning and facilities for other activities that we're already trying to figure out, professional and technical being one of them, but depending on the growth, other programs that need funding. And so when we launch this, and maybe we need our president to think with us a minute on what ripples go with that agreement, that there's a need, and that we're going out to talk to the Student Housing Authority to get, we're endorsing to them, essentially, is what I'm picturing this to be, saying, yep, we all agree there's a need. But then where the ripples go for what we as a campus need to do.
First off, thank you, Chairman, for the clarification on that, from where I started. Appreciate that, because you are very correct. But Graydon, I see you standing there, and I hear Trustee Meyer's question about unintended consequences, or as we call them, ripples. What's your thought on that, sir?
You know, my recommendation is, in fact, and I think the request of President Dean on behalf of the students here, is that you move forward with an approval of up to $100 fee so that that can be included in the budget process this time as well. I think we're agreed upon the fact that this need's been established over the years. I think to be able to move forward, and in fact, we had a discussion already with Dormitory Housing Commission, so they're aware that this process, this prospect exists, and we may be coming forward with it. In fact, their responsibility is primarily to assist with the arrangement of the bonding, the financing of the building. I believe that there's support all the way around, and the one thing that's left, as you mentioned, Trustee Banducci, is the financing of that. And in fact, I think the students have numerous times said we're willing to tax ourselves up to $100 to pay for this facility. And I think more than anything else, they're making that request of you tonight to say, yes, allow us to tax ourselves up to $100. Allow the administration to work with that and incorporate it into the tuition and fee structure for this next year's budget. And in fact, they were quite intentional in not being specific about the location, the size of the building, to allow for that to be considered with the sports arena and the placement of the building and everything else. We would work with the trustees, we'd work with Dormitory Housing Commission, we'd work with all the entities, but we couldn't work without the financing. So we'll find the right place at the right time within the context of all the other planning, but we have to have the money to begin with. So I believe, and President Dean could correct me if that's different, but more than anything else, they're asking for the ability to tax themselves up to $100 per semester to begin really moving forward on a project that's been talked about for 10 years.
Okay, clarify some, oh, I want to follow on with that, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'll get you in a minute.
Christopher, I think you should consider getting a suit like Graydon, because when you put that suit on, you're going to look a lot taller and more convincing. No question that on all of the higher educational institutions I've been at, it's a draw. It's an opportunity for the people that are coming to visit. Clearly, it's a great asset for this community, and I don't think any of us here want to stand in the way of that. You're talking about doing the financing yourself. That's incredible. My question to be to Graydon is what happens when you start taxing these students for a future, and that this delays aren't in the case where that you have a student in a second year that you've taxed them all year and he leaves, he didn't get use of that. Are you prepared to bank that with an understanding that they will get a return on that if they do not get a chance to ever use it?
I'd love to address that. Thank you very much. Very, very much prepared to defend that, because that's part of our culture. Oftentimes, as we develop this college, as we build our roads, as we develop our infrastructure, funding mechanisms have to be in place before construction can be completed. One never knows that they might be returning to the college, or their children or their spouse or their relatives or their friends might be utilizing their facilities. Investments that we make today may pay off in the future. I'm really comfortable addressing that to anybody that was concerned.
Follow-on question, and I'm addressing it to you, but if somebody on the board has more enlightenment on this, maybe Chairman Howard or President Dunlap, but if we authorize, say, a tax on the students of per semester of up to $100, does that put the tax at $100, or does that give you the ability to tax up to that? In other words, is there a discretion in what we do with this, or are we actually designating the specific number? Or are we just giving you a range and you can work within that?
I'm so glad you asked. It's up to, quite intentionally, up to $100. In fact, I had a chance to meet with some of our folks about the financing of it, and up to $100 could get us, depending on the length of the financing, close to $10 million. Based on previous estimates, that would build the facility, whether it be freestanding or remodel of Christensen, the amount of money that we needed. It's certainly our goal to reduce that to the least amount possible, to provide the services and the space that the students want, that we feel like we can support. And if we can do that for $50, if we can do that for $75, that would be fabulous. It would be the fact that we would stay at $100 or less, and it could be used only for those purposes.
But who sets the actual amount?
It would be based on the design of the building. The process for us would be, with your approval of up to $100, is to move forward with the design and the construction, not the actual construction, but the costing of this building. as we consider all the other things that the board's looking at, once we agree upon that, that'll determine the total dollar amount. That total dollar amount can be considered for financing rates and the length of term, and then we'll be able to set it from there. Our guarantee is that we would never, that we can satisfy those requests by charging $100 or less per semester for our students.
Before, and I'll call on you in just a minute, but again, just for a point of information, the process for doing this is not as direct as you'd hope it would be.
Right.
Because the Housing Commission actually plans, they do the planning, and they apply for the bonds, and they actually own the project until it's paid off. The sub that we're sitting in now, the dormitories, those are under bonds issued by that housing authority, and they belong to them until that bond is paid off. So I guess what I would suggest is that I think we need a kind of a specific motion, because I feel a little uncomfortable starting to charge $100 when we don't know if it's enough to do what needs to be done, or if it should be less, what it should be, and it may be a year or two. And quite frankly, the housing authority has the ability to go out and bond for the entire amount. And then the stream of income that the students have could start paying it off. I don't know that you need to bank that money in order to get this building started. You can do it with the bond. But again, that's the authority to do that is within that housing authority, not with us. We just designate that there's a need and that the students have authorized, and we would concur that a sum of $100, up to $100 for this facility. And beyond that, they're going to have to deal with it.
Sir. Graydon, if we're looking at not really resolving where we're headed with this event center until August, early September, then obviously there would be no plans available, no designs, no architectural drawings, anything else. So if I understood you on the sliding scale up to $100, that you would base that on how much money you think you're going to need to spend on the project. But we can't really determine the direction of the project until we resolve a few things as the board. When would you think to begin this tax? How to establish that initial amount?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, certainly until some of those things are answered. What we don't want to be in the position of having happen is some of those things get resolved, and we're at the point where we want to move forward with the student rec center, but we really can't impact tuition and fees until the following year. And so we're saying to our students, once again, let's wait a year. The need's still there, but we can't make a change in tuition and fees. We're asking for your permission to increase up to $100 at the time that becomes a reasonable choice. We certainly wouldn't do that at the end of one semester. We've never done that, but we want to have the ability, if some of these issues get resolved between now and the start of fall semester, which is traditionally when a change in tuition and fees takes place, we want to have that ability to start prior to fall semester. Doesn't mean that we will if things aren't in place, but we want to have that option.
Okay, so the word I'm looking for is you want a placeholder.
That's correct.
Again, just as a point of information, because it may be that we can try and simplify this. If what the students are asking, or authorizing us, or asking us to authorize is an additional $100 per semester, and they're saying that money should go to retire debt on any student housing projects, but that they want it used to develop a student activity center. Now, I guess what I'm thinking is if we started collecting money now and we didn't need that $100, it would have to go into a separate account. If you started to accumulate that money now and it went to pay off the existing debt, which those bonds are scheduled to be paid off within the next 3 to 5 years, I think. As soon as those bonds are paid off, all of the income that is presently there will go to pay off the bonds of the new indebtedness for the activity center. So no matter how you do that, that money ultimately will be used to pay for the activity center. And so if, from our standpoint, we can authorize the $100, if that's what you want. And we can recommend to the building authority, to the student authority, that they proceed with an expedited program to build a student activity center. They really are two separate things, and I don't know if that you understand the distinction, but one we can do, the other one we have to refer on. There was some other comments, Judy.
Just thinking about that and always liking control, one of the things I'm not clear about is who designs, who chooses the materials for some of the construction things, not just location. But I know we've talked about this in terms of other facilities, how much money is spent on the actual materials used, brick versus metal, for instance, or, extremes of whatever. I always like to have control over what's being done on campus. Does that happen within the parameters of what we're asking for?
Yeah, I think that's really outside the ambit of anything that we can do here. We have to refer that to the building authority.
That makes me nervous.
Well, but that's the way all these student-funded resources have been built. That doesn't mean to say we don't have any control on what's built or how it's designed. We just, they're the operating entity that, go ahead.
But in fact, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, it would always be our intent, Trustee Meyer, to bring that back in front of the board and talk to you about the construction, to ask for your approval. We're all in this together. We're all stakeholders of this institution and this facility. And so I'm quite certain we'd bring that back in front of you all the time.
And my thought, that's not to suggest you wouldn't. I don't have any doubt about that. For those of us who've been in the private sector and worked with the Department of Public Works or some of the other state agencies, there's the loss of control along the way.
And if I may, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, this commission that we're referring to is an appointed commission with 3 representatives that are local, not unlike our own Board of Trustees, that they're locally elected representatives who serve Kootenai County in this institution. So I'm really comfortable with the direction they would give to this project as well.
Did you have a comment?
Yeah, let me say something about this. The Dormitory Housing Commission is the one that would take this forward, as you know. But largely what they would be doing, and some big part of what they'd be doing, is looking at the bonding, which means they have to go to bonding agencies, they have to get bond attorneys, and in constructing those documents to make that legal and to make the bonds so that they are marketable and sellable, they have to establish how the funding streams is going to be created and how it's going to fund those bonds. Every time I've worked with them, there's always intricacies in it. I'm not a bond attorney. My reservation is if we establish a fee now, and NIC, when we have a right to establish a fee through those statutes that relate to the Dormitory Housing Commission and financing on this. But I don't know we're at the point here where we can establish what the amount is until we know what the amount of the bonds are and what the bonding agencies are going to require and the bond attorneys are going to require for how that fee is set up. So maybe we're getting the cart ahead of the horse on that part of it.
Any other comments,
Chair.
Christie?
Perhaps I could amend my motion, or Todd, I can't remember which one of us made the motion, but the amendment would be.
Why don't you withdraw it and make it over again?
Okay, I withdraw, and I'd like to make a new one.
Withdraw the second?
Yes, sir.
All right, now make it over again, so
Thank you. I'd like to give the ASNIC the authority to move forward with this project, whether there's a $100 amount or yet to be determined amount. I'd like to give them authority to move forward, and I'd like to do that tonight without a second reading. That's my motion.
do we have a second?
Yeah.
Ready to say that?
How would I say that?
Hey, Mr. Chairman, I think we're still discussing the motion to get it correct. 'cause
No,
I think-
second yet.
I think we need to put
We need a second in order to discuss the motion.
I will second.
Now we can discuss the
How would I
motion.
have to amend it?
I know it. It's okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Aren't you sorry I got this job?
that's all right. Well, we've waived the second reading. Mr. Chair, sir. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, so I guess we'll talk about the amendment to the motion that we just passed. Okay, we've established that we're going to have one reading instead of 2.
No, we haven't voted on that. That was withdrawn. And then, now we got a
You
new.
tricked me.
No, you got a new motion out that says that it would be the.
Yeah, okay.
And Okay, did we need to extend that motion to include the wording to say that the placeholder could be put there for the future fees that could be instituted in a timely manner instead of having to wait for a subsequent fiscal year or calendar year or school year? We're looking for some nimbleness here to move quickly if we can get there.
Let me explain. I think to authorize ASNIC to do something, they don't have the authority to recommend to the Housing Authority what to do. That's our job.
Okay.
We have to tell them that we think there's a need. And then we're also the ones that establish the fees that they pay. So there's two separate issues here. We can authorize the establishment of the fees at some time in the future or right now, and then we have to authorize, or we have to arrive at a resolution that we perceive this to be a need, and we revert on to the Dormitory Housing Authority.
Okay, may I withdraw my motion then and start over?
Sure can.
All right, I have two motions.
One at a time.
Did
One
you
at a
have-
time.
Oh, right. My motion is we have established a need, and we want to move forward with this rec center. That's the first motion.
Okay, is there a second?
I will second.
All right, any discussion on that motion? Yes. Oh, sorry.
Because it sounds like we're focusing on timeline right now for hurrying up to do this. And one of my questions then in discussion would be, because we'll be talking about fees, does that need to be decided at this April meeting?
We're just talking about the need for the rec center, that we recognize the need of the rec center. That's the only thing in the
No
motion.
money, okay. Thank you.
Any other discussion, Rob?
Obviously, we all understand it real well, so I think that maybe we do not bypass the first reading, we go to the second reading for our next board meeting, and then we get together and understand exactly what our options are. We all understand there's a need, we're all prepared to go forward, but I'd really like to have a better understanding of exactly what this all entails. So my recommendation would be is that we do not bypass the second reading. I think that we go to the second reading. That's
Right. In order to entertain that, you need to make a motion that we not treat this as a second reading, and it needs to have a second.
Mr. Chairman, do we need to vote on our motion first?
No,
or-
you vote on the amendment before you vote on the motion. Because if your motion is amended, then we vote on the amended motion.
Yes, sir.
So moved.
All right, so there's a motion to amend the motion establishing the need for the rec center to remove the condition that we treat this as a second reading. Do we have a second to that? We have no second?
Well, the amendment
Yeah.
was, one more time on the
Sure.
amendment, please.
The motion is that we determine that there's a need for a rec center, all right? The proposed amendment is, excuse me, the motion is that we establish there's a need for a rec center and we waive the need for a second reading. The amendment is that we remove the condition of the second reading. So we treat this as a first reading and we have a second reading. So that's the amendment. And do we have a second to that? To the amendment?
To the amendment, I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor of the amendment to treat it as to change the motion to treat it as a first reading? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Where's Kim?
Okay.
Thinking.
Well,
I'm going to say nay.
okay, I'm going to say, I'm voting in favor. So we treat it as a first reading. Now the amended motion is that that the board determine that there's a need for a rec center and pass that on to the Housing Commission.
First reading.
That's the motion, and it's been seconded as amended. So, all in favor? Any discussion?
Well, that we say there is a need.
Yes.
Aye.
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 Okay. Got that?
Mr. Chair, I guess
Mr.
if
Chair.
I would have
Yeah.
realized that was the motion, I probably would have supported I didn't understand
We're all
that.
muddled.
Let me, let me just establish,
just
at
trying
least
to get
for the
to the
record, so we know when we do the minutes. What we just voted on, and we can readdress it if you don't feel this is what you wanted to vote. We just determined that we will,
First reading.
we have determined there's a need for a rec center, and we're gonna send that recommendation on to the Housing Authority. That's what we just determined.
We've had just our first reading.
Yes, and we'll have a second reading next month. Yes,
Then as part of the first reading, which says we're going to have another reading next month,
yes.
it would help us, me, in my thinking, two things. One is, can we do any more financial modeling about what would be happening to help us get a handle on that phenomena? Because then the timeline of when we do tuition, or the fee, is still a factor in this year's budget, or can it be a separate item from the rest of the budget, because it's separate funding you described? That fee could be implemented at any time, except as students register, they need to know. So how's our timeline for where that happens?
About Ron on that one, sir? Excuse me, Mr. Chairman.
I'm asking, is that a question that the board wants to identify?
I think we're putting too much on the students in this motion. There are really two things that we need to address.
Okay.
Is there a need? We've determined that they're willing to tax themselves, if you will, $100 a semester, and we need to decide whether that we're going to do that, and if so, what the effective date would be. And then in terms of the details of how much it's going to cost, how it's going to be financed, we got to refer that on to the Housing Authority for determination.
Mr. Chair, are you asking for another motion?
Sure.
Well, I thought this was first reading.
Yes.
So I can still make the motion, but we're going to come back and talk about it again next meeting, even though we may have.
We are going to talk about it next meeting.
All right. I make a motion that we approve up to $100 fee for the, oh, God. Let's see, let me see, I gotta get this right. To move forward on the NIC Student Recreation Center. Does that satisfy it? Probably not.
Yeah,
That's what I thought.
Is
So
that your
we-
motion?
That's my motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Graydon.
Sorry.
Might as well.
I'll take that.
Any place you can get.
Yeah. Is there a second? Okay. If no second, then the motion fails for lack of a second.
All right.
That's not to say we
Do it
can't
next
address
time.
that next
That's my
Miss-
point.
meeting.
I'm sorry. Sir, I see Mr. Dorn looking like he wants to help us here a little bit.
Well, the financing part falls back on the college. The dorm housing commission doesn't have a staff. That winds up coming back to my office. That's a and I'm not saying we shouldn't do it, but that will be a time-consuming process once it starts. From hiring the legal advice to even begin the process of looking at the bonds, to going through that process of then designing that bond issue once the facility is designed, once we even know what the facility is, that we've got to get it designed, then we got to deal with the bond council, we've got RFP for the bond council, then go ahead and look at maybe issuing the bonds. You've got some time, but there's some other decisions before you can really do the financing. I can model probable bond payments at probable amounts, $5, $7, $10 million. I can do that. That's pretty easy to do. But really, what it's going to take for we do anything is they're going to have to design something before we get involved in this process. Before we really get involved in this process, you should go to the Durham Housing Commission and tell them there's a need, but still, until there's a design and a location, there's no sense of messing around with this bond issue, because we're not going to get anywhere, because we do have a process. It's marked, probably 6 months long by the time we get done between bond council and going out for the bond bid and having them accept it and get it instituted. It's a process, but without the design and knowing the dollars, the only thing that we can give you is, if it's a $5 million facility, at current rates, it'll cost this. If it's $7 million, it'll cost that.
Judy?
And what I think I'm hearing is you're suggesting we begin to collect the fees no matter how long it takes, because then the fees are ready to do something when we get there. Is that the distinction between, my hang-up was, we don't know what we're buying yet, because no matter what the money is, we want to know what the financial model is for whatever site is based on the design.
I don't think you need the fees early to get the bond, the bond issue. You don't need to collect fees early for that. You don't really have to start that. What they might need money for is the design of the facility. But I don't know they need to institute a fee of $100 to do that. It's got to be designed with a location before we really do any other work on it.
Ron?
You hit it right on the nose, Ron, is how can we talk about any design? We have to have a location. It starts out with, do we see the need? Then we have to decide where the location is. If the location's on-site, off-site, or whatever, there's no way you can possibly get your arms around what this is going to cost until you designate a location. Architect fees start behind that, then budgetary pricing comes in. All of that goes before, in that chronological order. It's the only way you can do it.
Mr. Chair? So I have a question for clarification. So we made the motion, we all approved that we agree there is a need, correct? I'm correct on that?
Yes.
And so, Graydon, are you able to move forward at all with that?
We've certainly established a need and support for it, so we're at that point. You know, what I'd like to be able to move forward for, to be able to deliver on this request that's been made on behalf of the students for so many years, is to get from you the information that you need, so that we can submit that in return as quickly as possible, so that we don't put the students in a position that, in fact, what we say is 6 months from now, or 8 months from now, or 10 months from now, yeah, okay, here's the information, and then we implement the fee for the following year. And so we delayed this another 12 to 18 months. I believe it's been delayed for a long time, and yet we've been in agreement that the need exists, I think, for quite some time. You know, we're not asking for a specific dollar amount. We're asking to be able to move forward to develop these plans, to come back with you, to you with more information as rapidly as possible. Understanding all of this happens to happen in the context of Dormitory Housing Commission, of the sports arena, of everything else. We want to know that you're okay to let us move forward and come back to you with the exact dollar amount. We can present two different proposals, for a freestanding and for a remodel of Christensen, if in fact the sports arena, so that we can have those plans and we're ready to take action quickly upon the approval.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Christie.
So then we can come back in second reading and attempt to move forward from there.
Yes.
And that would be May.
Yes, and you can amend this motion at that time if need be.
Perfect, thank you.
Right. Hopefully, when we come back on second reading, we will have a very specific motion that we can deal with. We'll look into, in the meantime, with the Housing Commission, what they need in order to move forward, understanding the students' desire to move forward quickly. I mean, they've made that clear to us, and we understand that, and we're going to do everything we can to help you do that.
Thank you very much. In the meantime, if there's any information that you request of the students or of our office, we'd be really glad to provide that and make sure you have it either prior to or at next month's board meeting.
Okay.
And I feel bad you had to stand the entire time. We didn't anticipate it taking this long. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, our next tab is awarding of tenure.
Hooray, they finally got this.
Chairman Howard, members of the board, President Dunlap, Mr. Lyons, I am proud to be standing before you to present to you the candidates for tenure for fall 2013. As you have heard this evening, these candidates have gone through a very rigorous process to be at this point of being recommended for tenure. They have done this consistent with policy 3.02.09 and also followed the procedure associated with this policy. They have been evaluated for over 3.5 years now, first of all by their students, secondly by their faculty evaluation team, and thirdly by their division chairs or other supervisors. And so that I would like to introduce each of the candidates to you this evening. Mr. Earl Dressbach, welding instructor. Earl, are you here?
Can you have him join you up there?
Oh, please. Come on up. Christina Edmondson, instructor of economics. Steve Johnson, chemistry instructor. Mike Kelly, biology instructor. Michelle Lippert, instructor of philosophy. Molly Mashad, English instructor. Josh Meisner, communications instructor. Cynthia Nelson, math instructor. Deborah Odell, music instructor. Karen Reeds, biology instructor. Shane Stockham, maintenance mechanic and millwright. Nicole Walters-Pikarski, associate degree nursing instructor. Sherry Zao, biology instructor. And we had 3 who were doing their job this evening as instructors, could not be here. Marcia Becker, associate degree nursing instructor. Amy Flint, English instructor. And Mark McFadden, math instructor. It is recommended the Board of Trustees consider a motion to approve tenure beginning fall 2013 for the faculty members presented.
Mr. Chair.
Christie?
I'd like to first off say that how fortunate we are as an institution to have such high-quality instructors, people that are committed to professional development and to what you do every day to enrich our students, and that you reach for the highest level. And that just brings back so much enrichment to this college and to this community. So I appreciate that. And with that, Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve tenure beginning fall of 2013 for the faculty members presented.
Right. And we'll treat that as a motion to include all of the faculty members that are presented at this time.
Correct.
We have a second.
Meyer seconds it.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Congratulations, everyone. Now, do they all want to make a speech?
Not a motion.
How about we thank them for lasting as long as they did?
Yeah. All right. Lita, thank you very much. Next on the agenda is the sabbatical leave.
Again, I am honored to be here this evening to present Mr. Michael Horswell, who has applied for sabbatical leave for fall 2013. Mr. Horswell would like to use his sabbatical leave to learn more about casting and glass processing and teaching three-dimensional design and sculpture classes, and to continue to participate in public art, and to pursue opportunities for students in fine art and create options for sculpture garden for student artwork, and to explore options for industrial sculpture shop space, and finally to research regional programs for inspiration and practical guidance. I would like to introduce to you Mr. Michael Horswell. It is recommended that the Board of Trustees approve and grant the sabbatical leave for Mr. Horswell for the 2013 fall semester per Board Policy 3.04.08.
Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'm happy to do it. And I don't want to hog this show, but I'm happy to do this. Mr. Horswell, you've been an incredible asset to NIC, and I really appreciated your application packet. It was wonderful. So, Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve the sabbatical application for Michael Horswell for 2013-2014 sabbatical leave.
Do I have a second?
Meyer seconds it.
I also had a second from Mr. Nielsen, so
Oh, second.
we'll take his second. See?
Third.
Yeah, right. All right. All in favor? Or any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. With that, we move into the first reading of a number of different items, and I'm going to use the board's prerogative and take a 10-minute break.
Thank you.
It's a good time.
So we can unwind our brains. Gee.
Four, three.
We're reassembled after our short recess, and we'll move on to the next agenda item, which is tab 6, and Ron Dorn. And Ron, would you please just move ahead through 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11? I don't need to address each one of those, if you would just move through them.
Tabs 6 through 11 are all part of the budget that we dealt with in the workshop, and they're all first reading right now, so I was going to do the forms, I'm not even sure I have to do that. I can't see them anyway, so we'll just go through. Tab 6 you had in your packet is the tuition and fee proposals for 2014. And again, this is a first reading, so with the information that we discussed earlier and what's in the tab, it's just for your information, a first reading on tuition and fees for our 13 and 14 budget. I'll answer any questions if you.
Any questions on tab 6, Ron?
In the workshop that we had, Ron, we talked a little bit about the difference between the fee structure and that NIC is one of the lowest costs of education in our competitors, and we talked a little bit about doing some market research to possibly look at what we could reasonably raise the rates to make sure that we have a balanced budget. Is there a process that you could take us through, or is there some way that we could pull that information together and say that this is a realistic increase that we could take with very little harm to the students?
I could go back and look at that, Ron. I don't have anything off the top of my head, but we surely can look at that in the next day or two, and come decide how to look at that, how I would structure that.
Okay.
Judy?
What we've done other years was you've given us a scenario of a 1% increase and what it would generate, a 2% increase.
That's in your packet.
Right.
Then what are we asking you to do differently?
If an increase is if we do the increase, and in that package you have, if it was a $5 tuition increase, it'd raise $600,000, $5 per credit. Is there something that's financially reasonable or sustainable in addition to going to the per credit hour charge that we could use that would be appropriate for our service area? This is what is the question I've been asked.
I think you're right, Ron. Those are two different. One is what does the market tell us that we should, and then what would that represent as far as an increase? So I think they're two different.
Any other questions on tab 6?
Look at that.
I'm talking about any of the attachments in tab 6.
No, those are, unless somebody has questions, those are items we looked at earlier tonight, and I don't know.
And my point on that was, here in the public meeting, we're talking about a workshop we had, and that workshop was open to the public.
Yes.
And the materials that we have here are available on the web for folks to look at these numbers.
They aren't now. They are not on the web right now.
PowerPoint is on, I believe is on.
Oh, Shannon's shaking her
PowerPoint
head.
is on the website.
Okay, all right.
So one of my highlights was, we're sliding through this now because we've had a chance to do a workshop. But for anyone else who wants to look, there are ways to look and ways to call us and talk about it. Thank you.
Thank you.
That would be part of the information that probably be gathered to help answer Ron's question.
So, any other questions or comments with regard to tab 6? Okay, let's move on to tab 7.
Tab 7 deals with the service units. As we've seen before, it deals with the service units and their budgets, and again, no action at this time, it's just the first reading. And again, what I want to highlight, this is separating them out from the general fund so that we all have a better idea of what makes up the college and better able to control and monitor our financial situation as total, why this has happened this year.
Judy?
Comment on that one, which is attachment A on tab 7. Would you, in your next round of auxiliary services, somehow put in parentheses what those are? Just to remind us, you told us in a workshop today, auxiliary services column includes student union, the bookstore.
Student union, bookstore, food services, and the residence hall.
If you could write those
We
in
can
there
do
or
that.
flag them
We
at
can
the
do that.
bottom, then we won't have to keep
And
asking.
somebody asked for the detail for each one of those options, it rolls up into this, and we can get that, and we can provide that to you.
Ron?
Ron, we talked at the workshop about the difference by different departments, auxiliary services, workforce training, and the difference in the benefit packages. My question to you is, what is the, for budget purposes, what have you put in for increase for benefits?
1%.
Just 1%? Ooh,
On an average, 1%. Well, we know our health insurance, Ron, we have the figure for our health insurance. And that is, on an average, a little less than 1% increase.
For health insurance?
Yes.
Health insurance for 214?
Yes.
Wonderful number if it will work.
I'm not, yeah.
Any other comments?
We have an increase in health insurance, we have, Sarah, we have an increase in,
There's also a state mandated requirement in the retirement rate. The PERSI rates, PERSI announced that they were increasing the rates for the next fiscal year, and we must meet those rates. So I don't remember the exact percentage, but I think it comes up to just under 12% of the.
but the increase isn't 12%.
No, the total is 12%. I'm sorry.
The increase is about 0.5% or something.
Alarm you on that one, sorry. Yeah, but the increase is about 0.5%.
We figure we have enough built into these, Ron, to handle those increases in those two entities right now.
Any other questions or comments with regard to tab 7? Tab 8.
8 deals with the dedicated fee-based budgets, and again, as I said before, there's an attempt to break this out so we see the parts more clearly, parts of the total more clearly, and we can monitor them and have better financial discussions on them in the future.
Any comments or questions with regard to tab 8? Okay. Ron?
Tab 9 is the first reading of the college operating budget.
Any questions or comments with regard to tab 9?
Here, Ken.
Yes.
Is, and I don't even know where to start with this, Ron, but is where I'm on tab 9D is in David, and we're looking at some of the
9D.
9 David, showing that we're going to have between budgetary, a budget of 213 to 2014, an increase of 1.677 million. And as we talked to the large portion of this is, the largest portion of this budget is headcount, employees, faculties, and ad hoc. Adjunct, sorry, ad hoc, adjunct. Is there a provision in here for any reduction in the total headcount of faculty and adjunct administration?
No, there isn't.
And I guess my question, if we are reducing our enrollment in this period by 5%, is that right?
Yes.
Why have we not put provision in for some reduction in headcount?
I think what we were proposing was to keep the base at the 13 level, which also would mean in our case not proposing any reduction at this point in time, and looking to see what that enrollment does in the fall. And there should be, but it doesn't answer your question, we haven't provided for it, there should be some reduction in adjunct faculty salaries, but there is no proposal to reduce any of the full-time positions at this time.
Lita, during our workshop, you also had a response to that question, I think. Do you remember the question?
I do. And as we increased our enrollment over the past 3 years, since 2008 actually, as the enrollment is increased, the greater percentage of the faculty that we have hired have been adjunct faculty or have been full-time faculty who have taken on overload. And so we have not added that many new positions to the full-time faculty members. I say that, I was just thinking as I was saying this, boy, it's funny how things pop into your head, as we just approved our largest number of tenure. But those actually were hired in 2008, really prior to our increase of full-time enrollment, our big bumps in full-time enrollment. So we have addressed the increase in enrollment primarily through adjunct and through overload to full-time faculty. So as we move into a reduction of that 5% reduction, we will be looking at the numbers of courses as they fill and as they don't fill. As they do not fill, we will actually be canceling the courses, which means canceling adjuncts, canceling overload for full-time faculty.
I think another reason we haven't, and again, I don't have a long history here, but in the 3 years I've been here with the enrollment growth that this institution has experienced, there's been very little additional staff added to this. I think maybe in the time I've been here that is funded out of the general fund, there might have been, what, 2 or 3 positions, I would think, Sarah? There haven't been many. And I think we have just caught up in that sense, Ron, to being able to manage the workload that we have now, but there hasn't been a large increase. So I know that's why there hasn't been a look-see and reduction of those full-time numbers right now. But there's been very little change in staff over the years.
Yes, Lita.
And just for clarification, again, just in terms of there being 16 faculty members approved for tenure, in 2008, there were a number of faculty who were hired into full-time tenure-track positions based on the fact that they had been long-standing special appointment positions for a number of years. Many of the faculty you saw presented tonight actually have worked at NIC probably for 8 to 10 years, because their first 5 to 7 years they were here as special appointment and really held the positions of full-time faculty, but not in a tenure-track role. So although the number appears that we have hired a tremendous amount of tenure-track faculty, these were people who had held positions that we had maintained in the early 2000s just because of the number of classes we needed to cover. And then at some point it was decided that they needed to be what was termed as rolled over into tenured-track faculty, because those positions had been required over a long period of time.
But Ron, at the end of the day, we're having a decrease in revenue of 5%. We're having no reduction in headcount as far as faculty or in this project, and we're having a 2% increase in salaries is the proposal here. How is this going to balance out against there? I mean, I'm struggling with trying to figure out, if you have your revenue drops, no operational cost reduction, and we have a 2% increase in faculty salaries, how do you balance this budget?
It's balanced right now primarily between the per credit hour, going to the per credit hour charge is really the major way that this has been balanced, and that does not include an increase for anybody, faculty or otherwise. It just maintains the base. In this one, there is no salary increase for faculty or staff in here. And to do that would either require additional revenue, or the board recommended we go back in the budget and look for other expense reductions to cover that.
Okay, but make sure I understand, Ron, is that if if we know off the top our revenues are down, that we're gonna get some bump in revenues by charging more for those credit hours between 12 and 15, which is gonna give us approximately how much additional revenue?
1.2 million.
1.2. We have about $130,000, if I remember right, of increased tax revenue because of growth. But with these other, and we have a whole laundry list of recommendations for budgets that don't fit at this point, that we need to have some cushion so that there's some of these things that Mr. Dunlap is going to need to be able to run this college. We have to have some cushion in there. Our business, we start out by saying, here's where we are, this is what our cost is, and if we have a downturn, which has only happened a couple of times, we start at every budget year saying that we're anticipating a 10% increase in sales, and then in turn, we will fill that as it grows, but we also look at a 25% reduction as an emergency position, where what happens if our business would fall off automatically? And as we looked at the last 2 years, we don't know what's gonna happen in 2015, so I think that we have to have an emergency plan that says, how do we continue to be responsible, to make sure that we're willing to make the tough decision, which is the number one cost of this college is headcount. And so we have to be willing to put that on the table to make sure that we balance it, because we've made a commitment, my understanding, we've made a commitment to the taxpayers here, we're not gonna go asking for more money, and that's in this proposal. The state of Idaho has told us they're not gonna give us any more money except for growth, and we're not having any growth. And so we're kind of up between a rock and a hard spot unless we have some cushion for some of these things that might come up. So my recommendation is we have to look at some potential reduction in headcount, if it be adjunct or wherever, is some reduction to be able to balance this budget. So that's my point.
Christie?
As Dr. Burns mentioned, when we reduce the number of classes that are offered, we will reduce the number of adjunct that we are employing. Those individuals are not counted as headcount because we hire or not hire based on the immediate need. And so it provides an incredible amount of flexibility to expand or contract. The 5% reduction in enrollment is not a 5% reduction in revenues. What that means is that our tuition is about a third of our revenue. So you're really looking at a reduction of 5% of 1/3 of our budget in terms of what that means. And so when you translate that, it comes out to about $500,000. The increase in the per credit charge will generate about $1.2 million. So we're to the plus by about $700,000. And so there is not a direct correlation between a 5% decrease in enrollment that we are projecting. We don't know that for sure. And the headcount of full-time individuals. So let me give you an example going the other way. Over the past 5 years, the college has increased enrollment by 46%. We did not increase our employees by 46% because there's not that direct correlation, and we have the ability in our classes to either add adjuncts or not, or to have faculty increase the number of students that they can take in a class, or to take an overload to teach an extra class. So there are some other mechanisms within our system that allow us to expand and contract that is not a direct correlation between actual enrollment and absolute full-time employees.
Todd?
Joe, if President Dunlap, sorry.
Joe's okay.
I'm hearing you and I'm thinking, I guess an example of that, how you're illustrating it, is kind of how it could be peanut butter spread in the sense of, if I have 20 classes, and in each of those classes I have 20 students, and my enrollment comes down 5%, that could be just one less student in each of those classes, and so I'd still have to provide the 20 classes, just be 19 in each of them instead of 20. So that may or may not afford me the opportunity to get rid of an instructor.
Well,
I don't, get rid of is not really a good way to say it, to downsize our number of instructors.
well, and that's exactly right. And so we have a cutoff point in terms of a class being cost-effective or not. And it's about, 12 students? And so if we have less than 12 students and we have multiple sections of that class, then we would cancel that class and take those, let's say, 10 students and try and accommodate them in those other sections. If we have a class that we only offer once per year, and a career and technical program is a good example of that, and it's only offered once a year, we have to offer that, even if there's only one student in it, because we've got to provide the opportunity for that student to complete. So there's some dynamics in the type of class we offer and the number that are needed to run a class, whether it's a repetitive class or once a year.
Any other comments or questions about that?
Right now, I'm sitting in that budget, as we went over, I'm really sitting there probably with about $600,000 to $800,000 in unallocated funds in there. And we went over that, the enrollment contingency, and that's right now, that would be our first line, probably our first line of defense, Ron, and looking at if we had further reductions to make. But we have some money in there to deal with that.
Okay,
I
very
hope
good.
that helps a little.
Judy?
Good, thank you.
Just want to clarify, we talked about there was a salary increase for faculty here, but I think I heard you say there was not.
There are no salary increases in this budget that we went over. It is in that list of
Options later.
options, but it is not, there is no salary increase in this budget.
Mr. Chair, but there was the 0.5% in the Percy, so for the retirement plan.
The benefits, both health insurance and Percy, are covered in here. But salary increases, no.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Did we get a final determination? I don't know if you've had time, but during the budget workshop, I asked what the governor allotted for public employees in his
Oh.
budget.
Nobody went back, nobody, we don't
Okay.
have anybody here to
We'll
do
get
that.
that
I'll have
next
to get that tomorrow.
Thank you.
Get that tomorrow.
Any other questions on this tab? All right, let's move on to tab.
Tab 10 is deals with the grant activity. I don't have much discussion. You saw the chart, and it's just there, again, as another opportunity to break the budget out, so we have a better understanding of what's in there. And as you heard from the president's report, when you see this report next year, you could have millions of more dollars in this section if we get additional grants. This one will fluctuate by the grants that come on board and the grants that go offline. It'll change.
Yeah, Judy? Question?
When you speak of grants, though, those grants are usually focused on some particular thing. They're not just open-ended chunks of money.
Yes, they're
Well,
focused.
that's exactly right. They're focused on a specific program. The funding is for a specific reason. But typically, grants, and in particular, the federal grants, come with indirect funding that can be used at the institution's discretion.
Mr. Chair, we rarely get to talk about our grants really in depth. As they come in, we celebrate and say yay. But I had a question. Are we providing adequate personnel to focus on grants? Do we have a person dedicated to grants? We certainly are benefiting from them, but I don't know if we're giving you enough resources.
We have an excellent grant writer, Sarah Flayland, who works for Rael Anderson. She is pretty much maxed out. We have a number of faculty and deans and divisional chairs who work with her to help put together those grants. And so they are pedaling as fast as they possibly can.
Well, they've been amazing, and I just want to make sure that we're giving you enough resources. We're always saying, go out and get this grant, but it's a very difficult, long process, and that's, you got a day job on the side of that. So you will let us know if you need more help, right?
Thank you for the invitation. We'll be sure and do that.
Ultimately, that would impact my area. We have one full-time position devoted to grants right now, and if we did increase a whole lot more, whatever that volume is, at some point, that increase would force us to look at least another person or part-time person, because the financial management of those really comes back through our office for the reporting part of that.
Yeah, it's huge.
Any other questions or comments on tab 10? All right, let's move on to tab 11.
And tab 11 is just the summation of all these different parts, as I said before, that we looked at to give you a total perspective of what the budget is that you're in charge of, which is almost $60 million.
Any questions on tab 11 or comments? Thank you very much. Our next agenda item is a legislative session review, and Mark Browning is not here, or at least has been replaced by a water bottle, I see.
I hope it's at least full.
So we have the information contained in our board materials, and we'll utilize those as his report. The next agenda item is the board chair report, and I've got some good news and some good news. The chair took a vacation, so he has a short report.
Good news, good news.
Yeah. I went to a session here on campus a day ago or 2 days ago on the economic forecasting. Very, very informative talk by the Vice President of U.S. Bank, or
John Mitchell.
John Mitchell, yes. After I was in there for a while, I wished we all could have had the opportunity to attend that, because it was very helpful. And so I asked the economist from the Department of Labor, Olivia Metz, if she would put together maybe a report for us and report at one of our meetings on the economic forecast for the Kootenai County area and the 5 northern counties. So I hope in the next couple of months, we will have a presentation by her that gives us some understanding of what's going on, what jobs are available, what they're paying, what the forecast is, and that sort of thing for the Kootenai County and the 5 northern counties. I also attended a human rights celebration the other night. It was very well done, but I wanted to congratulate the ASNIC students. They had 3 tables there, 3 or 4 tables, yeah. And well represented, NIC at this function, and I wanted to congratulate them for doing that. That was very nice and very well received. The last thing I want to report on is that tomorrow morning at 7:30, or shortly thereafter, President Dunlap and I will be making a presentation to the LCDC, the Lake City Development Corporation, in their visioning meeting. They have a visioning meeting they're holding at the Kroc Center, and they're asking various community representatives, the cities, Jobs Plus and that sort of thing, to come in and make a presentation with regard to what we may see as issues that should be viewed long-term and short-term by LCDC. And so we're going to make a presentation talking about our present ad hoc committee, exploring the development of this event center, and hopefully get them to make commitments to us, if not tomorrow, at least in the short term, as to how, in what way, and how much can they be involved, if at all. And that will be a significant step along the way as we start to explore the potential and the likelihood of our being able to complete that project. So that concludes my report. Now, the last item is remarks for the good of the order. Are there any remarks for the good of the order? Todd?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I have one. As we were going through the budget process today, it occurred to me as we were working through tab 10, and I noticed a couple of the organizations that we have oversight, one being the Area Agency on Aging and the Head Start, and I know that first one's near and dear to Ron's heart as he's getting older. And it occurred to me that I've seen some literature on it, minutes, emails, and I guess, and I mentioned this earlier, that it occurs to me that truthfully I question our oversight of those 2 organizations, and I think we're doing a kind of a perfunctory thing where we're rubber stamping it, and I honestly don't feel that I'm we have a lot of responsibility there and maybe even some authority, but I don't know that, that we're really getting a chance to review those, and to do so would be a tremendous amount of time and effort. And so I guess I'm wondering still if we're the most appropriate place for that, or if somebody maybe like the hospital board or somebody like that that's more in line with taking care of kids and seniors and more of an outreach in that sort of capacity, you know, versus just an educational institution like we are, or our core mission. If we are the most appropriate board to have oversight over those two organizations and to do it justice. I just feel that personally that if you were to come to me right now and query me regarding those two organizations, I'd be woefully inadequate to speak to either of them in any detail whatsoever.
Any other remarks for the good of the order? Judy?
I'll make these short, but I think we need to run through them. One is the Cardinal Connection program that you attended, and many of them, it's just what I think a community college should be doing, is providing those kinds of things. And bravo to all the staff that make it happen where it looks so easy when we know it's not always that way. I would highlight to you that our local representative on the State Board of Education, Don Soltman, has just been elected president of the State Board. That's the first time since I was on it, I think 15 years ago or so, and that will help people remember Northern Idaho, which is always fun to have happen. A couple of calendar things. I know graduation is coming up, and you'll coordinate us on people covering different events. I thought the professional technical tours that we did were very helpful. I hope we have on our calendar still to look at the Columbia Community College in Pasco. Was that the one we were going to go tour at some time? ACCT is in October. At least in our house, we're starting to hold on to those dates or they'll disappear. And then the dates for the next professional technical forums that we're doing
29th and the 6th.
would be next Monday, the 29th, and then again on the 6th. Okay, I've done it. Thank you.
Any more remarks, Ron?
And I'll take off what Judy was just saying, is this PTE forum that we had was very energetic, very exciting, lots of polarized different positions and input, and I think that we would encourage everybody that has some interest in where this campus goes and why to come and participate, listen, because those three televised will be reviewed by this board to make a somewhat of an intelligent decision where we think it makes the most sense. So I would encourage any of the public that wants to weigh in on this to don't miss that opportunity on the 29th, next Monday at 6 o'clock?
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock, and the 6th the same.
For folks that can't make the forum, there are ways for people to write, to email, or to send in input so that we make it as accessible as we can.
And they are being replayed. The forums, the community events are being replayed on Channel 19 in Coeur
But
d'Alene.
that doesn't give people a chance for input until they see them. Okay.
True, sorry. I'm
Yep, let's do it.
adding to say that if you don't want input but you want to see it, you can.
Yeah, there's a place on the website to submit comments.
Great, thank you.
Any other remarks for the good of the order? If not, we are adjourned. Thank you all.
Back for a little bit, Ron, or do you?